Have you ever found yourself scrolling through endless profiles, sending messages into the digital void, or going on a date only to feel completely overwhelmed by the roller coaster of hopes, anxieties, and second guessing? That chaotic, often exhausting search for connection is something so many of us know all too well. It can feel like you're adrift in a vast, unpredictable ocean, tossed by every new match, every ghosting, every spark of possibility that either fizzles out or ignites into a firestorm of overthinking. In a world that often reduces attraction to a game of algorithms and instant gratification, it's easy to lose your footing, to feel like your emotional stability is entirely at the mercy of someone else's text back or a single evening's outcome. But what if you didn't have to be at the mercy of those waves? What if you could find a way to stay centered, resilient, and truly yourself, no matter what the world of dating and relationships throws your way? This is where an ancient philosophy, tested by time and turmoil, offers a profoundly different path. Stoicism, practiced by Roman emperors and slaves alike, wasn't about suppressing emotion or becoming cold and unfeeling. It was about cultivating an unshakable inner strength, a core of wisdom that remains solid even when the world outside is in chaos. And when we apply this timeless wisdom to the modern landscape of attraction, we discover a powerful toolkit for navigating it all with grace, clarity, and profound self-respect. It provides what I like to think of as anchors, mental and emotional practices that keep you grounded, preventing you from being swept away by fleeting passions, fears, or disappointments. Throughout this video, we are going to explore 25 of these Stoic anchors together. These are not abstract ideas, but practical, actionable principles that you can start applying to your own life and relationships immediately. Each anchor is designed to help you reclaim your power, to interact from a place of wholeness rather than neediness, and to build connections that are based on mutual respect and genuine compatibility, not just fleeting chemistry or anxious attachment. This is a journey into building a love life that doesn't drain you, but rather enriches you, a journey toward becoming the most grounded, attractive, and emotionally resilient version of yourself. So, let's begin with the first and perhaps most fundamental anchor that Stoicism offers us. Anchor number 1 is arguably the bedrock of the entire Stoic mindset, and it's called the dichotomy of control. The core idea, famously articulated by the philosopher Epictetus, is both simple and life-altering. Some things are within our power and other things are not. Our own judgments, our impulses, our desires, and our actions, these are squarely within our control. But everything else, including the actions of other people, our reputation, our wealth, and even our own body to a significant extent, are ultimately not within our full control. Now let's bring this directly into the arena of attraction. Think about the last time you felt that nervous flutter before a date. Where was your focus? Was it on preparing yourself to be a good conversationalist, to be genuinely curious, to be present and kind? Or was it spinning out about whether they would like you, whether you'd say the wrong thing, whether there would be a spark? The first set of concerns, your own actions and intentions, are completely within your control. You can decide to be attentive, to listen well, to be your authentic self. The second set, their reaction, their feelings, the elusive spark, are not. They belong to the realm of the uncontrollable. Applying this anchor fundamentally changes your entire orientation. When you internalize the dichotomy of control, you stop investing your emotional energy in trying to orchestrate a specific outcome from another person. You release the exhausting need to be perceived in a certain way. Instead, your entire goal shifts to simply managing what is yours to manage, your own character. Your aim becomes to act with integrity, with kindness, with virtue. Did you show up as your best self? Did you treat the other person with respect? If you can answer yes to those questions, then the interaction was a success, regardless of whether you get a second date or a text back. This isn't about being passive, it's about being proactive where it actually matters. You put in the work on your side of the net, and you let the ball on the other side land where it may. This practice is an incredible antidote to the anxiety that so often plagues modern dating. That anxiety almost always stems from a preoccupation with the uncontrollable, the fear of rejection, the hope for validation. But when you anchor yourself in what you can control, that anxiety simply has less to grip onto. You are no longer a ship tossed about by the waves of someone else's whims. You become the steady captain, focused on sailing your own ship well, regardless of the weather. You start pursuing connection not from a place of neediness, but from a place of wholeness, offering the best of who you are without the desperate attachment to a particular result. This inner stability is not only liberating for you, but it's also profoundly attractive to others. Let's make this practical. Imagine you've just been on a first date. The conversation seemed to flow, you felt a connection, and you leave feeling hopeful. A few days pass, and you notice they haven't replied to your last message. That old, familiar feeling of rejection starts to creep in. The Stoic application of the dichotomy of control here is transformative. You consciously separate the events. Sending a thoughtful, respectful follow-up message was entirely within your control. You acted with intention and courage. Their decision not to reply, however, falls squarely outside your control. It belongs to them, their own complex world of thoughts, preferences, and circumstances that you cannot and should not try to command. When you frame it this way, the rejection loses its power to define your self-worth. It is no longer a verdict on you, but simply a piece of information about their current path. Your worth was intact before the date, and it remains intact now. It was never on the table for negotiation. This same principle reshapes how you walk into a conversation with someone new. Instead of mentally rehearsing witty lines or worrying about creating a specific impression, your entire focus shifts to the one thing you truly own, your own presence and authenticity. Your goal is not to engineer a specific reaction from them, laughter, admiration, attraction. Your goal is to be genuinely curious, to ask questions from a place of real interest, and to listen with the intention of understanding, not just waiting for your turn to speak. When your focus is on managing your own character in the interaction, being kind, being honest, being attentive, you paradoxically become more engaging and more at ease. The pressure to perform evaporates. You're no longer trying to extract validation from the other person, which is a heavy energy to carry. You are simply offering the best of who you are in that moment, and that authenticity is both a relief to you and magnetic to others. Managing expectations on a date is perhaps where this anchor provides the greatest sense of freedom. We often go into social situations, especially romantic ones, carrying a heavy suitcase of expectations. We hope for a spark, we anticipate a second date, we imagine a future. These expectations are all focused on uncontrollable outcomes, and they set us up for a crash if reality doesn't match the fantasy. The Stoic approach is to replace expectation with intention. Your intention is to share a pleasant evening, to learn something new about another human being, and to act in accordance with your own virtues. You are not there to secure a specific result. You are there to experience the moment as it unfolds. This shift is incredibly liberating. It allows you to actually enjoy the date for what it is, rather than as a means to an end that may never materialize. A date becomes successful not because it led to a relationship, but because you remained grounded, true to yourself, and open to the experience itself. This isn't a lack of ambition. It's a profound wisdom that understands that the only genuine success is the integrity of your own actions. Anchor number 2 builds beautifully on this foundation of focusing on what you can control, and it's a concept that might just transform how you view every so-called failure or disappointment in your life, especially in matters of the heart. This anchor is known as amor fati, a Latin phrase that translates to a love of one's fate. It was a principle held dear by the Stoics and later echoed powerfully by thinkers like Friedrich Nietzsche, who famously wrote, "My formula for greatness in a human being is amor fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity." In essence, amor fati is the profound practice of not just accepting everything that happens to you, but actively loving it, embracing it as an essential and beneficial part of your unique path. Now let's pause for a moment and apply this directly to the often painful experiences of modern dating. How many times have you walked away from a date that didn't lead to a second one and labeled it a failure, or felt the sting of unrequited attraction and viewed it as a personal defeat, a sign that you're not good enough? We instinctively categorize these experiences as negatives, as roadblocks on our path to finding connection. But amor fati invites us to radically reframe this entire perspective. What if that failed date wasn't a failure at all, but a necessary step? What if that person who didn't return your interest did you an immense favor by freeing you up for a connection that is genuinely right for you? This isn't about slapping a happy face sticker on a painful experience and pretending it doesn't hurt. It's about digging deeper to find the inherent value and the crucial lesson embedded within the experience itself. When you practice amor fati in your love life, you begin to see every single interaction, every match, every conversation, and every goodbye as a thread in the larger tapestry of your journey. A date that feels awkward teaches you more about the kind of communication you truly value. An experience with someone who isn't emotionally available reinforces your own boundaries and clarifies what you need in a partner. Even the simple act of being ghosted, as painful as it is, can become a powerful lesson in detaching your self-worth from the unpredictable actions of others. Each of these events is not a random punishment or a sign that the universe is against you. They are the very curriculum you need to develop the wisdom, strength, and discernment required to recognize and build a healthy, lasting relationship when it finally appears. This mindset is an incredible tool for building resilience. Disappointment in dating often comes from the gap between our expectations and reality. We expect a connection to blossom, and when it doesn't, we feel a sense of loss. Amor fati closes that gap completely. It teaches you to welcome reality as it is, not as you wish it would be. When you truly embrace this, the sting of disappointment begins to dissolve because there is no longer a bad outcome. There are only outcomes, each with its own gift. A first date that leads to a wonderful relationship is a gift. A first date that goes nowhere is also a gift. The gift of clarity, the gift of time preserved, the gift of a lesson learned. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstance and start seeing yourself as an active student of your own life, collecting data and gaining strength with every single experience. Think about a real-world example. Imagine you went on a few dates with someone and you really started to like them. You felt a growing sense of optimism, only for them to tell you they don't feel a romantic connection. The initial reaction is often a crushing blow to your self-esteem, but with the anchor of amor fati, your internal dialogue shifts. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" you begin to ask, "What is this experience here to teach me? How can this serve my growth?" Perhaps it's teaching you to not invest so heavily so quickly. Perhaps it's revealing that you are more in love with the potential you saw in them than the person they actually were in the present moment. By loving this fate, by accepting it and seeking its value, you transform a painful event into fuel for your personal development. You walk away wiser, more self-aware, and better equipped for the next connection. This philosophy also completely changes your energy when you are out there meeting new people. When you are no longer terrified of failure because you see every outcome as valuable, you become more relaxed, more open, and more authentically yourself. The desperate need for a date to work out vanishes. You can engage with people from a place of genuine curiosity and exploration, rather than from a place of auditioning them for the role of your future partner. This lack of desperation is incredibly attractive. It signals a wholeness and self-contentment that is far more magnetic than any perfected pickup line or carefully curated profile. You stop seeking completion from another person and start offering your already complete self to the shared experience of getting to know someone new. Amor fati, therefore, isn't a passive resignation to your lot in life. It is an active, dynamic engagement with every single moment, trusting that the entire journey, with all its twists and turns, is conspiring to make you stronger, wiser, and more ready for the love you truly deserve. Anchor number 3 introduces a Stoic exercise that might sound counterintuitive at first, but its power to cultivate emotional freedom is immense. This is the practice of negative visualization, or as the Stoics called it, premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. At its heart, this isn't about pessimism or dwelling on the worst. It's a conscious and deliberate mental rehearsal of potential challenges or losses. The purpose is to strip future hardships of their power to shock and destabilize us, and to dramatically increase our gratitude for what we have right now. When we bring this profound tool into the realm of attraction and relationships, its application becomes truly transformative. How often have you found yourself becoming intensely attached to a person after just a few good dates? You start imagining a future together, crafting stories in your mind, and almost immediately, a subtle desperation can creep in. You become afraid of saying the wrong thing, of not being impressive enough, of losing this budding connection. This fear, born from intense attachment, is precisely what negative visualization helps to dissolve. The practice involves taking a quiet moment to consciously imagine the very scenario you fear, life without this specific person. You don't just briefly acknowledge the possibility, you sit with it. You visualize the conversation where they say it's not working out. You picture yourself moving through your days afterward, feeling the initial sting of disappointment, but then continuing on with your life, your routines, your friendships, and your personal goals still intact. The incredible paradox of this exercise is that by willingly facing the possibility of loss, we actually enhance our capacity to enjoy the present connection without the weight of clinging. It's like holding a precious glass ornament. If you clutch it tightly in a fist of fear, terrified it will slip and shatter, you can't truly appreciate its beauty. You're only focused on the tension of potentially losing it. But if you hold it gently in an open palm, acknowledging its fragility, you can admire it fully, understanding that its temporary nature is part of what makes this moment of holding it so valuable. This is what negative visualization does for our relationships. It opens our palm. Let's explore a concrete scenario. You've been seeing someone for a couple of months and things are going wonderfully. The instinct is to grip tighter, to try and lock it down, to become anxious at the first sign of any distance. Instead, you engage in a brief session of negative visualization. You think to yourself, what if this ended tomorrow? What if they decided this wasn't right for them? You allow yourself to feel the hypothetical sadness, not to wallow in it, but to prove to yourself a fundamental truth: you would be okay. Your world would not collapse, you would grieve, you would learn, and you would eventually move forward, still a complete and valuable person. By confronting this fear head-on, you drain it of its terror. You realize that your wholeness does not depend on this one relationship. This realization then completely changes the quality of your interactions. When you are no longer interacting from a place of fear, a fear of loss, fear of rejection, you become a more authentic and attractive partner. You stop people-pleasing and molding yourself to what you think they want. You are more likely to express your true opinions, to set healthy boundaries, and to engage in conversations with genuine curiosity rather than a strategic agenda. The other person gets to experience the real you, not a version of you that is frantically trying to secure a specific outcome. This practice cultivates a kind of relaxed confidence that is incredibly magnetic because it signals that you are with them by choice, not by desperate need. You are there to see if your lives fit together beautifully, not because you require their presence to feel complete. Furthermore, this discipline fosters a deep and active appreciation for the present moment. After you've mentally rehearsed the absence of this person, when you return to the reality that they are still in your life, your appreciation for the simple moments, a shared laugh, a good conversation, a quiet companionship, is heightened. You stop taking their presence for granted. You begin to cherish the experience for what it is right now without fast-forwarding to an uncertain future. This mindful presence is a gift to both you and the person you're with. It allows you to participate fully in the relationship as it unfolds, rather than being a passive passenger anxiously watching the road ahead for potential pitfalls. Negative visualization, therefore, is not a practice of pushing love away. It is a practice of loving more wisely, with more freedom, and with a heart that is open and grateful rather than clenched and fearful. Anchor number 4 invites us to step back from the intense, close-up lens through which we often view our romantic lives, and instead adopt what the Stoics called the view from above. This is a powerful mental exercise where you consciously zoom out from your immediate situation, lifting your perspective higher and higher until you see your life, your city, and even the entire planet as a tiny, fleeting speck in the vastness of the cosmos. It's about shifting your frame of reference from the intensely personal to the universally grand. When you're in the middle of a painful breakup or reeling from a disappointing date, it can feel like your entire world is collapsing. The emotions are raw and all-consuming, but this Stoic practice asks a simple, humbling question. In the grand scheme of the universe, how significant is this single event? Think about the last time you felt truly embarrassed or hurt by something that happened on a date. That feeling of humiliation can be so visceral, so sharp, it feels as if everyone can see it written on your face. Now engage the view from above. Imagine pulling your perspective up out of the coffee shop or the restaurant. See the building from above, then the neighborhood, then the entire city sprawled out below with its millions of inhabitants, each with their own complex dramas, joys, and heartbreaks. Keep going. See the continent, the planet as a blue-green marble hanging in the blackness of space. From this vantage point, that awkward conversation or that unreturned text message doesn't just feel smaller, it is objectively smaller. It is a single data point in the unimaginably vast and ancient history of human interaction. This isn't meant to minimize your pain or dismiss your very real human emotions. It's designed to provide context, to remind you that this one event does not define the totality of your existence. This cosmic perspective is an incredible tool for maintaining emotional equilibrium. The intense anxiety and sadness we often feel in our dating lives are fueled by a kind of myopia. We get so focused on the single tree of a failed connection that we lose sight of the entire forest of our life. The view from above restores that sight. It reminds you that you are more than your relationship status. You are a being with a rich inner world, with friendships, passions, curiosities, and a life that is full of meaning far beyond whether one particular person chooses to be in it. When you consciously practice this zooming out effect, the sharp edges of your immediate distress begin to soften. You create a small space between the event and your reaction to it, and in that space lies your freedom to choose a wiser, more resilient response. Consider a practical application. You've just been through a breakup that you didn't see coming. The grief feels overwhelming, and it's tempting to spiral into thoughts that you'll never find love again, that there's something fundamentally wrong with you. This is the moment to actively employ the view from above. Sit quietly and take yourself on that mental journey. Visualize your street, your town, the spinning earth. Contemplate the sheer scale of time, the centuries that have passed and the centuries yet to come. In that immense timeline, your life, and this specific relationship within it, is a brief, beautiful, and transient chapter. This relationship was a season, not the entire climate of your existence. From this expanded viewpoint, the narrative that this is the end of everything simply cannot hold. It reveals itself as a story you are telling yourself in a moment of pain, not the ultimate truth of your being. This practice also cultivates a profound sense of humility that is strangely liberating. We often walk through our romantic lives with a hidden assumption that our story is the central story, that our pain is uniquely catastrophic. The view from above gently dismantles that ego-driven illusion. It places your personal drama alongside the birth of stars, the rise and fall of civilizations, and the countless other hearts that have loved and lost throughout history. You realize you are participating in a universal human experience, not suffering a special punishment. This connection to the larger human condition can be a deep source of comfort. You are not alone in your feelings. You are part of a grand, shared tapestry of human emotion. This realization doesn't erase the pain, but it does rob it of its isolating power, allowing you to bear it with more grace and less despair. Ultimately, integrating this anchor into your daily life helps you stop sweating the small stuff long before a major crisis hits. That person who ghosted you after a great conversation. Viewed from the cosmic scale, it's a minor blip, a gust of wind, not a hurricane. This doesn't mean you become apathetic or detached from your own life. On the contrary, it allows you to engage with it more fully because you are no longer drained by every minor setback. You conserve your emotional energy for the things that truly matter, cultivating your character, nurturing genuine connections, and contributing positively to the world around you. The view from above grants you the serenity to accept the things you cannot change in your love life, not with resignation, but with the quiet confidence of someone who knows their place in a vast, wondrous, and unfolding universe. Anchor number 5 presents one of the most empowering and actionable principles in the entire Stoic toolkit. The obstacle is the way. This concept, immortalized in the meditations of Marcus Aurelius and the life of countless Stoic figures, turns our conventional understanding of problems completely on its head. It asserts that the very barriers we perceive in our path are not just inconveniences to be endured, but the very raw materials we need to build our strength, character, and ultimately our success. The impediment to action, as the Stoics would say, advances the action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Now, let's bring this revolutionary idea into the often fraught landscape of attraction. Consider the most common and painful experience, rejection. Our default human reaction is to see rejection as a full stop, a definitive no, a door slammed in our face that confirms our worst fears about our own inadequacy. But the obstacle is the way invites us to reframe that entire event. What if rejection isn't a blockade on your path to connection, but a crucial redirection? What if it's the universe's way of steering you away from a compatibility that was never truly aligned and toward the person or the personal growth that is actually meant for you? This refusal from someone else isn't the end of your journey. It is an essential part of the path itself, providing you with invaluable data and resilience you wouldn't have gained otherwise. To truly grasp the power of this, we can look to a historical Stoic example, the philosopher Epictetus. Born a slave and crippled at a young age, Epictetus faced obstacles that would have broken most people. Yet he famously taught that it's not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. He transformed his physical and social limitations into the very fuel for his philosophical development. His obstacles, slavery, disability, became the crucible in which his profound inner freedom was forged. He didn't just cope with his circumstances, he used them as the way to achieve a level of wisdom and tranquility that has inspired millions for 2,000 years. In your own life, a rejection can be your Epictetus moment. It is not the event itself, but your judgment that it is a catastrophe that causes the suffering. When you change that judgment, you transform the obstacle into your teacher. This mindset completely changes how you approach difficult interactions. Imagine you're in the early stages of dating someone and you notice a pattern of behavior that bothers you. Perhaps they are consistently late or frequently cancel plans last minute. The easy default path is to feel resentful, to complain to your friends, or to simply swallow your dissatisfaction, fearing that bringing it up might rock the boat and cause a breakup. This is seeing the difficult conversation as an obstacle to be avoided, but the obstacle is the way reframes this conversation as the path itself. Having that respectful, honest conversation is not a risk to the relationship, it is the relationship being built. It is your opportunity to practice the Stoic virtues of courage by speaking your truth and justice by setting a fair boundary. The outcome of that conversation, whether they respond with understanding or defensiveness, then provides you with the critical information you need. If they listen and adjust, the relationship grows stronger. If they don't, the obstacle has shown you the way out of a dynamic that was not built on mutual respect. Let's make this even more tangible with a scenario. You muster the courage to ask someone out and they politely decline. The old story is one of personal failure. The new story, informed by this anchor, is one of progress. The obstacle there, no, is actually showing you the way forward in several concrete ways. First, it is a masterclass in courage. You practice the virtue of courage simply by putting yourself out there and making the ask. The outcome is separate from that virtuous action. Second, it is a lesson in detachment. Their response is outside your control, and accepting this gracefully is a practical exercise in the dichotomy of control we discussed earlier. Third, it frees up your time and emotional energy to pursue other connections that might be a better fit. The rejection didn't block you, it cleared a clogged pipe, allowing energy to flow toward more promising opportunities. You are literally being redirected, and that redirection is a form of progress. This philosophy encourages a proactive, rather than a reactive, stance toward everything that happens in your love life. When you internalize that the obstacle is the way, you stop being a passive victim of circumstance and start becoming an active architect of your own growth. Every ghosting, every mismatch, every moment of confusion becomes a training ground. You begin to ask not, why is this happening to me, but what is this preparing me for? What strength is this inviting me to build? This transforms the entire dating process from a stressful audition into a personal boot camp for your character. You stop seeking a smooth, obstacle-free path to a relationship because you understand that the obstacles are the path to becoming the kind of person who is capable of sustaining a healthy, loving partnership. The resilience, self-awareness, and emotional maturity you gain from navigating these challenges are the very qualities that will make you an exceptional partner when the right connection does arrive. You are not just waiting for your person, you are actively building yourself into the person ready for them. Anchor 6 brings us to the very heart of Stoic philosophy, and perhaps its most beautiful and challenging concept, to live according to nature. Now, this doesn't mean we should all abandon our homes and go live in the woods. For the Stoics, nature had a very specific meaning. It referred to the rational, social, and virtuous nature of human beings. We are designed by nature to use reason, to act with justice, to cooperate with others, and to cultivate excellence of character. Therefore, the highest good, the ultimate goal of life, is to live in accordance with this nature by embodying virtue. Virtue, encompassing wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline, is not just a nice bonus, it is the sole good. Everything else, our health, our wealth, our relationships, are considered preferred indifference. They have value and we can prefer to have them, but they are not fundamentally good in themselves. Their value is entirely dependent on whether they are used virtuously. So, what does this profound shift in perspective mean for our search for connection and attraction? It completely inverts the modern dating paradigm. In a world obsessed with curated profiles, status symbols, and instant chemistry, the Stoic asks a radically different question. Not, is this person attractive, successful, or entertaining? But, is this person virtuous? Are they honest, kind, courageous, and self-disciplined? This reframes the entire purpose of seeking a partner. You are no longer looking for someone to complete you or to provide you with validation and pleasure. You are seeking a partner in the pursuit of a good life, a fellow traveler on the path of virtue. The most profound and lasting form of attraction from this viewpoint is the attraction to someone's character. Think about the fleeting nature of so much of what we initially find attractive. A person's physical appearance, while it can be a wonderful initial draw, is subject to change and decay. Their social status or wealth can be here today and gone tomorrow. Even a sparkling wit or a shared hobby, while enjoyable, can prove to be a shallow foundation if it's not supported by a core of integrity. But a person's character, their honesty when it would be easier to lie, their courage in the face of difficulty, their fundamental kindness toward others, this is the bedrock upon which deep, resilient trust and attraction are built. When you prioritize virtue, you are investing in the only thing in another person that is truly stable and reliable. You are being drawn to their essence, not their accessories. This principle also demands a deep and honest look inward. The Stoic call to live according to nature isn't just a filter for judging others. It is first and foremost a directive for your own conduct. In the context of dating, it means that your primary goal in any interaction is not to be liked, but to act with virtue. Are you being honest about your intentions and your feelings, even when it feels vulnerable? Are you treating the person across from you with genuine respect and justice, regardless of whether you feel a spark? Are you exercising the self-discipline to not lead someone on for your own ego or convenience? When you make virtue your aim, the dynamic of the entire exchange transforms. You are no longer performing or selling a version of yourself. You are simply presenting your character for inspection and simultaneously inspecting the character of the other person to see if your paths align in a meaningful way. Let's ground this in a real-world scenario. Imagine you're on a date with someone who is charming, successful, and physically very attractive. The conversation is flowing and there's a strong undercurrent of mutual chemistry. In the middle of the evening, the waiter brings the wrong order. A person who is living for pleasure or status might react with irritation, condescension, or make a scene to assert their importance. But a person living according to virtue would handle the situation with patience, understanding, and kindness toward the waiter. From a Stoic perspective, this momentary interaction is far more revealing of character than any story about their career achievements. It shows you how they handle minor adversity, how they treat someone in a service position, and whether their default mode is one of justice and self-control. That display of virtue, or lack thereof, is the most critical piece of data you can collect about your long-term compatibility. This anchor also provides a powerful compass for navigating the complexities of modern relationships, particularly when it comes to honesty. It can be tempting to obscure the truth about your past, your desires, or your level of interest to keep someone around or to avoid an uncomfortable conversation. The virtue-focused Stoic, however, sees honesty not as a tactical choice, but as a non-negotiable expression of their character. Telling a difficult truth might risk the short-term connection, but it upholds your integrity. And integrity, in the Stoic view, is the only real possession you have. By prioritizing your own virtuous action, you ensure that no matter what happens with the relationship, you walk away with your self-respect fully intact. You haven't sold a piece of your character for the chance of a romance. This inner consistency builds a profound sense of self-trust that makes you both more resilient and more authentically attractive. Ultimately, living according to nature in your love life means shifting your focus from finding the perfect person to becoming the right partner. It's about cultivating the virtues within yourself so that you become someone worthy of a deep, virtuous connection. When you embody honesty, you naturally attract those who value truth. When you practice kindness, you draw in people who appreciate compassion. This approach doesn't guarantee you'll never be lonely or that you'll find a partner instantly, but it does guarantee that the connections you do form will be built on a foundation that can withstand the inevitable storms of life. You stop seeking someone to fill a void and start seeking a fellow conspirator in the grand, challenging, and beautiful project of living a good life. That shared purpose, rooted in mutual respect for character, is the most powerful and enduring form of attraction there is. Anchor number 7 invites us to consider a Stoic practice that might seem intense or even morbid at first glance, but which holds a surprising key to living and loving with more courage, clarity, and passion. This is the discipline of memento mori, a Latin phrase that translates to "remember you will die." This isn't about cultivating a morbid fear of death, but rather a profound and constant awareness of life's finitude. The Stoics saw this remembrance not as a source of dread, but as the ultimate tool for prioritizing what truly matters. When you hold the reality that your time is limited and profoundly precious, it has a way of burning away the trivial, the inauthentic, and the fear-driven hesitations that so often clutter our path to genuine connection. Now, apply this powerful lens to the world of attraction. How much time and mental energy do we waste on people who are lukewarm about us, on decoding cryptic text messages, or on staying in situationships that offer no real future, simply because we're afraid of the discomfort of a direct conversation? Memento mori acts as a sudden, clarifying alarm clock. It asks a piercing question. If you knew your life could end a year from now, a month from now, or even tomorrow, would you really spend another evening agonizing over why someone left you unread? Would you continue pouring your energy into a connection with someone who treats you as an option rather than a priority? The awareness of mortality forces an honest audit of how you are spending your most irreplaceable resource, your time. It reveals the sheer absurdity of allowing our fleeting lives to be consumed by the petty dramas and passive-aggressive games that so often characterize modern dating. This practice is an incredible catalyst for boldness. One of the most common fears in dating is the fear of rejection, the terror of putting your true feelings out there and having them unreciprocated. We hesitate to send that first message, to ask for that phone number, or to express that we've developed deeper feelings, all because we want to avoid the potential sting of a no. But memento mori reframes the cost of this hesitation. The Stoic realizes that the real tragedy is not the momentary discomfort of rejection, but the lifelong regret of never having tried. The regret of the question that was never asked, the feeling that was never shared, the chance that was never taken. When you remember that you will die, the risk of momentary embarrassment shrinks into insignificance next to the specter of permanent regret. This awareness gives you the courage to be the one who speaks first, who expresses genuine interest openly and without manipulation, because you understand that a life lived in fear of honest expression is a life half-lived. Let's make this practical. Imagine you meet someone at a social gathering and you feel an immediate, strong pull toward them. The old, fearful pattern might be to simply hope they notice you, or to tell yourself it's not the right time, or to look for them on social media later and endlessly debate sending a friend request. Memento mori cuts through all that noise. It whispers, this moment is all you are guaranteed. You may never see this person again. With that truth held firmly in mind, the courageous action becomes clear. You walk over, you introduce yourself, and you express your genuine interest in a simple, respectful way. The outcome of that interaction, whether they are receptive or not, is now secondary. The primary victory is that you lived with courage and authenticity in that moment. You honored the brevity of life by seizing the opportunity it presented, and no matter the result, you have no regret. You acted in accordance with your desire and your values, and that is a success in itself. This principle also teaches us to invest our emotional energy far more wisely. Contemplating the end reminds us that our capacity for deep feeling and connection is not infinite. We have a limited number of heartbeats, a limited reserve of attention and care. Why would we squander that precious reserve on connections that are draining, inconsistent, or fundamentally disrespectful? Memento mori instills a powerful sense of discrimination. It encourages you to ask not just, do I like this person, but is this person worthy of my limited time and love? When you start evaluating potential partners through this lens, you naturally begin to gravitate toward those who are clear, kind, and enthusiastic in their reciprocation. You develop a much lower tolerance for breadcrumbing, hot and cold behavior, and emotional unavailability, because you viscerally understand that life is too short to be someone's backup plan or occasional distraction. You start choosing people who choose you not out of neediness, but out of a profound respect for your own finite journey. Ultimately, memento mori transforms the quality of your presence in the relationships you do have. When you are aware that every conversation, every shared laugh, every quiet moment with someone you care about could be the last of its kind, you stop taking those moments for granted. You listen more intently, you express appreciation more freely, you are more present and less distracted by your phone or your own internal monologue. This isn't a practice of living in fear of loss, but of living in deep gratitude for the gift of connection in the here and now. It makes your interactions richer, more vivid, and more meaningful. This mindful, appreciative presence is one of the most attractive qualities a person can possess. It signals that you are fully engaged in the shared experience of life and that you value the person in front of you not as a means to an end, but as a precious and irreplaceable part of your own finite story. By remembering that we will die, we learn not how to die, but how to truly live and love with a bold, open, and unfiltered heart. Anchor 8 brings us to a deeply personal and transformative Stoic discipline that acts as a mirror for the soul, the practice of nightly journaling for self-awareness. While figures like Marcus Aurelius wrote his Meditations as a personal journal never intended for publication, this was his private space for rigorous self-examination. For the modern seeker navigating the complexities of attraction, this practice becomes an invaluable tool for untangling the knots of desire, projection, and habit that so often lead us astray. It's not about writing a simple diary of events. It's about conducting a fearless and honest audit of your own mind and motivations at the close of each day. The process is straightforward but profound. Each night, you take a few quiet moments with a notebook and ask yourself a series of targeted questions about your interactions and feelings. The first and most crucial question is this: in matters of attraction today, did my actions align with virtue? This moves the focus from what you got to what you gave. Did you act with kindness even when you felt insecure? Did you have the courage to be honest about your interest or your boundaries? Did you exercise self-discipline by not over-investing in someone who showed only lukewarm interest? For example, perhaps you felt tempted to send a needy text to someone who hasn't replied, seeking to pull a reaction from them. Journaling allows you to examine that impulse. You can write, I felt the urge to seek validation through a second text. I paused and chose not to. This was an exercise in self-respect and discipline. By framing your actions through the lens of virtue, you reinforce your own character and stop evaluating your success by the unpredictable reactions of others. A second, equally powerful line of questioning involves asking, did I project my own desires or fantasies onto someone today? This is where we catch our minds in the act of building elaborate castles in the sky. It's so easy to meet someone interesting and immediately start imagining a future with them, assigning them qualities they haven't yet demonstrated. In your journal, you can call this out explicitly. You might write, I noticed after that good date, I started imagining us traveling together. I projected a sense of reliability and commitment onto them after just one evening. The reality is, I do not yet know their character. I will enjoy the connection without writing the future story. This simple act of naming the projection dissolves its power. It forces you to separate the real, observable person in front of you from the idealized character you've created in your mind. This protects you from the profound disappointment that comes when the real person inevitably fails to live up to the fantasy, and it allows you to connect with who they actually are. This nightly ritual builds a cumulative self-knowledge that is your greatest defense against repeating unhealthy patterns. Many of us find ourselves drawn to the same type of person again and again, only to end up in the same kind of dysfunctional dynamic. Journaling helps you map these patterns. Over time, you'll see entries like, "I felt a strong pull toward someone who was emotionally distant. This reminds me of my pattern of seeking validation from unavailable people." Or, "I noticed I downplayed my own success to make the other person feel more comfortable. This is a pattern of shrinking myself." By seeing these tendencies written down in black and white, they lose their subconscious hold on you. You can't change a pattern you aren't aware of, and this practice shines a bright, consistent light on the very loops you need to break. It transforms you from a passive participant in your own love life into an active researcher of your own psyche. Let's ground this with a concrete scenario from start to finish. Imagine you went on a date tonight. The old pattern might be to spend the rest of the night over-analyzing every word they said, rereading the text chain, and anxiously waiting for a sign. With a journaling anchor, you take a different path. You sit down and write. First, you assess your own virtue. I was attentive and asked thoughtful questions. I was honest about my work and my interests. I feel I acted with integrity. Then you check for projections. I noticed I felt very excited when they mentioned they love hiking, and I immediately pictured us on weekend trips. This is a projection. I am attaching a future to a shared hobby. I will appreciate the shared interest without building a life around it yet. Finally, you look for patterns. I felt a familiar rush of anxiety when there was a pause in the conversation. This is my pattern of fearing I'm not interesting enough. I observed it and I let it pass without letting it dictate my actions. This 10-minute exercise does more for your emotional stability and clarity than hours of anxious rumination ever could. Ultimately, this practice cultivates a gentle but firm objectivity about your own journey. It's a conversation with your best, most rational self. Over weeks and months, your journal becomes a record of growth. You'll look back and see how you've progressed from being easily swept away by every spark of attraction to engaging with a steady, discerning mind. You'll notice your entries shifting from "why don't they like me" to "did I like myself in that interaction?" This is the ultimate goal, to build a relationship with yourself that is so honest and secure that your attractions become conscious choices, not compulsive reactions. You stop being a mystery to yourself and start becoming your own most trusted guide in the complex and beautiful journey of finding connection. Anchor 9 introduces a core Stoic teaching that can feel like a superpower once you truly internalize it. The idea is that it's not events themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about those events. Epictetus, who began his life as a slave, put it in the most direct terms: men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. Your ex moving on with someone new is a simple fact in the external world. The gut-wrenching pain, the jealousy, the narrative that you've been replaced and are now somehow worthless, that is not in the event. That is a story, a judgment you are actively creating and then attaching to that event. A vague text message is just a collection of words on a screen. The anxiety that it means they're losing interest, the frantic search for hidden meanings, the feeling of being suddenly insecure, that is your judgment at work, not an inherent quality of the text itself. This distinction is absolutely critical because it places the source of your emotional turbulence back into your own hands. You are not a passive victim of every external circumstance. Between the event and your reaction, there is a space, and in that space lies your power to choose your judgment. This is where true freedom resides. When you see your ex pop up in a social media photo with a new partner, the initial automatic judgment might be one of personal failure and rejection. It shouts, "I wasn't good enough, our time meant nothing, they're happier without me." The Stoic practice is to catch that automatic judgment the moment it arises and consciously replace it with a more rational, calm, and truthful one. You could choose a judgment like, "This is a natural part of life moving forward. Our chapter is closed, and their new relationship does not erase the value of our past or my worth in the present. I wish them well and focus on my own path." The event remains exactly the same, but your emotional experience of it is completely transformed. Let's apply this to that classic source of modern anxiety, the vague text. You send a message, and the reply you get is something brief and non-committal, like "sure" or "K." The initial catastrophic judgment immediately paints a terrifying picture. They're angry, they're bored with you, the connection is fading. But if you pause in that space between the message and your reaction, you can deploy a more rational and generous judgment. You can tell yourself, "I have no concrete evidence about their internal state. They could be busy at work, they could be distracted by a personal matter, or they might simply be a person who writes short texts. The meaning I am feeling is a story I am adding to this neutral data." By choosing this calmer interpretation, you prevent yourself from spiraling into anxiety or, even worse, sending a follow-up message fueled by insecurity that could actually damage the connection. You respond calmly, or you simply let it be, and you go about your day with your inner peace intact. This practice of guarding your impressions requires continuous vigilance. Our minds are wired to instantly narrate and interpret the world around us, often leaping to the worst possible conclusion, especially in matters of the heart where we feel vulnerable. The Stoics called these initial, unchecked judgments impressions, and their philosophy urges us not to accept them at face value. Instead, we are to examine them as if they were a stranger presenting a case to us. Is this impression based on solid fact, or is it a story built on fear and assumption? By making this a daily habit, you start to rewire your automatic thought processes. The vague text gradually loses its power to trigger a panic attack. Seeing your ex with someone new becomes a bittersweet moment of observation rather than a full-blown existential crisis. Consider the long-term impact of this discipline on your overall attractiveness and peace of mind. When you are not constantly being yanked around by your unchecked judgments about other people's behavior, you project a remarkable stability. You become someone who is not easily rattled, who doesn't jump to conclusions, and who gives others the benefit of the doubt. This emotional maturity is incredibly appealing. It creates a safe and trusting space in a relationship because your partner knows you won't immediately assume the worst if they have an off day or send a clumsy message. You guard your own inner peace so effectively that you stop requiring constant reassurance from the outside world to feel secure. Your sense of worth becomes anchored in your chosen judgments of self-respect, rationality, and calm, rather than in the unpredictable and often ambiguous actions of others. This isn't about becoming emotionally detached, it's about becoming the calm, clear-eyed author of your own emotional life, rather than letting fleeting external events write the story for you. Anchor 10 illuminates a critical distinction that lies at the very core of mature decision-making: the choice to act with purpose rather than being swept along by passion. In the Stoic framework, passion or pathos referred to those destructive, irrational, and overwhelming emotions that hijack our reason, like a storm cloud obscuring the sun. Purpose, on the other hand, is action guided by our rational faculty and aligned with our deepest values and virtues. When we bring this lens to the world of attraction, it completely redefines what it means to pursue someone. Are you reaching out because you feel a compulsive, anxious need for their attention, a raw surge of infatuation that demands satisfaction? Or are you engaging because, upon calm reflection, this person's character, values, and life direction appear compatible with your own, making the exploration of a connection a purposeful endeavor? This distinction manifests most clearly in the early, dizzying stages of a new attraction. Passion screams for immediacy. It's the voice that insists you text them at 2 in the morning, that pushes you to declare your feelings on a second date, that convinces you to cancel your own plans just on the off chance they might be free. It's a fire that consumes all available fuel, including your own peace of mind and personal boundaries. Purpose, however, speaks in a much quieter, steadier tone. It encourages you to move at a pace that allows for genuine discovery. It reminds you to maintain your gym schedule, your time with friends, and your personal projects, because a healthy connection should complement your life, not consume it. Passion is about filling a void. Purpose is about sharing an already full life. Consider the powerful example of Cotto the Younger, a staunch Stoic known for his unwavering commitment to principle over political passion. In the tumultuous final days of the Roman Republic, he consistently chose the path of duty and the preservation of the Republic over the seductive, passionate appeals of power and self-interest offered by figures like Julius Caesar. While your dating life may not involve the fate of an empire, the same dynamic is at play. The passionate pull to ignore red flags in someone's character because the chemistry is so electric is your inner Caesar, tempting you to sacrifice your long-term peace for a short-term thrill. The purposeful decision to walk away from a dynamic that feels exciting but fundamentally misaligned with your need for honesty or respect is your inner Cotto, upholding the integrity of your own inner republic. Let's make this practical. Imagine you meet someone who is incredibly charismatic and flirtatious. The banter is effortless, the physical attraction is intense, and you feel that addictive high of being in their presence. This is the siren song of passion, but as you spend more time with them, you notice they are consistently evasive about their past. They make promises they don't keep, and they have a habit of speaking poorly of their ex-partners. Passion will rationalize all of this. It will whisper, they're just mysterious, or they've been hurt before, or the connection is too strong to walk away from. It will urge you to overlook the data in favor of the feeling. Acting with purpose requires you to pause and consult your values. You value honesty, reliability, and kindness. The observable evidence shows a pattern that conflicts with these values. A purposeful approach, therefore, would be to either have a direct conversation about these concerns or to calmly end the connection, recognizing that no amount of fiery chemistry can compensate for a lack of foundational virtue. The decision is difficult, but it is made from a place of self-respect, not self-abandonment. This anchor also transforms how you approach initiating relationships. A passion-driven approach is often rooted in a fear of missing out or a need to conquer. You see someone attractive, and the impulse is to win them, to have them choose you, almost as a trophy for your ego. The focus is entirely on the outcome, securing the date, becoming exclusive rather than the quality of the journey. A purpose-driven approach reframes the entire pursuit. Your goal is not to get the person, but to discover, through shared experience and conversation, whether your lives and characters are a good fit. You are not trying to convince them to like you, you are mutually evaluating compatibility. This shift removes a tremendous amount of performance anxiety. You are no longer a salesperson pitching a product. You are a discerning individual conducting a thoughtful interview for the most important position in your life, a partner. Ultimately, learning to act with purpose cultivates a profound and magnetic sense of self-possession. When you are not jerked around by every surge of infatuation or crushed by every rejection, you project a stability that is deeply attractive. People are drawn to those who have a clear center, who know what they stand for, and who aren't desperate for validation. You stop choosing partners based solely on the intoxicating rush of the beginning and start selecting them based on the calm, steady conviction that they are a good traveling companion for the long road ahead. This doesn't mean you eliminate passion or chemistry from the equation. Rather, you put them in their proper place. They become wonderful spices that enhance the meal, but they are not the substance of the meal itself. The substance is the shared purpose, the aligned values, and the mutual respect that can only be built when two people choose each other not out of a blinding passion, but from a clear-eyed and purposeful commitment to building a good life together. Anchor 11 expands our perspective beyond the individual self and even beyond the potential partner in front of us, inviting us to adopt a truly panoramic view of human connection. This is the Stoic principle of cosmopolitanism, the profound idea that we are all citizens of a single, shared world. The Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius, frequently reflected on this concept, reminding themselves that we are all part of the same rational community, bound by our common humanity rather than separated by nationality, social status, or even our personal romantic interest. When we internalize this worldview, it fundamentally reshapes how we approach the entire landscape of attraction, dissolving the subtle but pervasive us versus them mentality that so often turns dating into a strategic game or a battlefield. Think about the language we often use unconsciously. We talk about playing the field, winning someone over, or getting ghosted by an adversary who has vanished from the game. This framing sets up a dynamic of winners and losers, of pursuers and pursued, where the other person is objectified into a goal to be achieved or an obstacle to be overcome. Cosmopolitanism dismantles this entire adversarial structure. It asks you to see the person sitting across the table from you not as a target for your charm or a validator of your worth, but first and foremost as a fellow human being. They are a citizen of the same world you inhabit, with their own intricate history, their own private struggles, their own dreams and fears, their own complex inner world that is just as vivid and real as your own. This shift from seeing a date to seeing a fellow traveler is transformative. This perspective is a powerful engine for genuine empathy. When you sit down with someone new, instead of being wholly focused on how they are perceiving you or whether they meet your checklist of desirable traits, you can approach them with a sense of genuine curiosity about their human experience. You can wonder, what has their journey been like? What joys and sorrows have shaped them? What are they truly seeking in their life? This line of inquiry doesn't come from a place of clinical analysis, but from a place of shared citizenship. You are meeting a co-inhabitant of your world, and there is a natural dignity in that encounter. This empathetic stance immediately lowers your own defensive walls and performance anxiety. You are no longer there to be judged. You are there to have a shared human experience, to connect with another member of your universal community. Let's make this concrete with a scenario. Imagine you're on a first date that isn't going particularly well. The conversation feels forced, the chemistry is absent, and it's becoming clear that there isn't a romantic future here. The default, ego-centric reaction might be one of mutual disappointment or even mild resentment. You might think, this was a waste of my time, or what's wrong with them that they can't see how great I am? The cosmopolitan perspective offers a completely different and far more gracious interpretation. You can think, here is another human being trying to find their way in the world just like me. Our paths have crossed for this brief evening, and even though our romantic frequencies don't align, we can still share this moment of human companionship. This reframe allows you to end the date with kindness and respect, wishing them well on their journey, because you recognize their fundamental worth is not dependent on their compatibility with you. They remain a valuable citizen of the world, just on a different path. This principle also serves as a potent antidote to the dehumanizing aspects of modern dating apps. It's easy to dismiss a profile as just another picture in a sea of faces, to swipe left on someone for a trivial reason without a second thought, or to feel a sense of disposable abundance. But when you cultivate a cosmopolitan mindset, you remind yourself that behind every single profile is a real, living, breathing person with the same core desire for connection and understanding that you have. This doesn't mean you have to go on a date with everyone, but it does encourage a more mindful and humane approach to the entire process. You engage with more intention and less judgment. You communicate with more clarity and less ambiguity. And you treat even the briefest interaction with a baseline of respect that acknowledges your shared membership in the human family. Furthermore, this worldview dramatically reduces the sting of rejection. If you see a potential partner not as an opponent who has defeated you, but as a fellow citizen who has simply reported that your paths are not aligned for a shared journey, the experience loses its personal, adversarial venom. Their no is not an attack on your value. It is simply a piece of navigation data informing you that your route and theirs are diverging. They are exercising their own sovereign will as a free citizen, just as you are entitled to do. This fosters a profound sense of mutual respect and freedom. You can release them with goodwill, genuinely hoping they find the connection they seek, because their happiness as a fellow human does not detract from your own. Your sense of self is rooted in your participation in the vast human community, not in the approval of any single one of its members. By seeing yourself as a citizen of the world, you carry an unshakable sense of belonging within you that no single romantic outcome can ever grant or take away. Anchor 12 introduces a Stoic exercise that might seem paradoxical at first, the practice of voluntary discomfort. This isn't about seeking out pain for its own sake or adopting a life of austerity. Instead, it's a deliberate and strategic choice to temporarily step away from the comforts and distractions we normally rely on, in order to prove to ourselves a profound truth, that we are capable of handling hardship and, more importantly, that we can be content with less. When we consciously choose a small amount of manageable discomfort, we inoculate ourselves against the fear of a larger, involuntary discomfort that life might throw our way. In the context of attraction, this practice is a direct antidote to the deep-seated fear of being alone, a fear that often drives needy, clingy, and ultimately unattractive behavior. Think about the modern comforts we use to buffer ourselves from any hint of loneliness. We fill every quiet moment with the noise of social media, endlessly scrolling through the curated highlights of other people's lives. We hop from one potential connection to the next on dating apps, terrified of the empty space between conversations. We say yes to social events we don't even want to attend, just to avoid the prospect of a Friday night by ourselves. These behaviors are like emotional painkillers. They mask the symptom of loneliness but do nothing to address the underlying cause, which is often a lack of self-sufficiency and a fragile sense of self-worth that depends on external validation. Voluntary discomfort asks you to willingly remove these buffers for a short period, to sit in the quiet and discover that the monster you feared, being alone with yourself, is not a monster at all, but a source of immense strength and peace. The most powerful application of this in today's world is a voluntary social media or dating app detox. For a weekend, a week, or even just a few days, you consciously log out of all platforms. Initially, you might feel a sense of withdrawal, a nagging anxiety about what you're missing, who might be messaging you, or whose life you're not observing. This is the discomfort you have chosen, but as you sit with it, something remarkable happens. The frantic noise in your mind begins to settle. Without the constant comparison to others' seemingly perfect relationships or the dopamine hits from new matches, you are forced to turn your attention inward. You remember what it's like to be bored, and in that boredom, creativity and self-reflection often blossom. You start a project you've been putting off, you read a book, you go for a long walk without posting about it. You prove to yourself that your happiness and sense of self are not held hostage by your digital social life. Similarly, choosing a period of intentional solitude is a profound act of voluntary discomfort. This isn't about isolating yourself out of sadness, but proactively scheduling time where you are completely by yourself without any planned distractions. You might spend a Saturday entirely on your own, cooking a nice meal for one, visiting a museum alone, or simply sitting in a park and observing the world. At first, it might feel strange or even a little lonely, but as you move through the experience, you begin to enjoy your own company. You realize that you can be a complete, interesting, and contented person all by yourself. You are not half a person searching for your other half. You are a whole person capable of sharing your wholeness with someone else. This realization is the death knell for neediness. When you know in your bones that you are perfectly fine on your own, you stop approaching potential partners from a place of lack. You stop seeing them as a life raft and start seeing them as a fellow sailor you'd simply enjoy having on your ship. This discipline builds a resilience that is palpable in your interactions. Imagine you're dating someone and you notice they are taking longer than usual to reply to a message. The old needy pattern, fueled by the fear of being alone, would be to spiral into anxiety, send a follow-up message, or start mentally composing a desperate plea for attention. But if you have been practicing voluntary discomfort, your reaction is completely different. You have already faced the quiet of a weekend without external validation and discovered you were okay. A delayed text message is a minor ripple, not a tidal wave. You can think, they are busy and I am perfectly fine occupying myself, and then you genuinely go and do something enjoyable on your own. This emotional self-sufficiency is incredibly attractive. It signals that you are with someone because you choose to be, not because you need them to fill a void. Your presence becomes a gift, not a demand. Consider a more concrete example. You decide to practice voluntary discomfort by taking a complete break from dating apps for 1 month. For the first week, you might feel a restless urge to check your profiles, a fear that the one might swipe right while you're offline and you'll miss them. This is the fear of lack talking, but as the month progresses, you reclaim a massive amount of mental energy and time. You invest that energy in your hobbies, your friendships, and your personal growth. By the end of the month, you have tangible proof that your life is rich and fulfilling without a constant stream of new matches. When you return to the apps, your energy is completely different. You are no longer scrolling from a place of hunger, desperately seeking someone to complete you. You are browsing from a place of abundance, calmly looking for someone who seems interesting enough to warrant sharing your already wonderful life with. You become a selector, not a beggar, and that shift in energy dramatically increases the quality of your connections. Ultimately, this practice teaches you that the source of your security and contentment must be internal. A relationship should be a celebration of two already complete individuals coming together, not a frantic merger of two halves trying to become whole. By regularly choosing small, manageable doses of discomfort, a digital detox, a solo adventure, a period of intentional solitude, you systematically dismantle the architecture of neediness within you. You build a core of self-sufficiency that makes you resilient to the inevitable ups and downs of dating. You learn that solitude is not loneliness, but a sacred space for self-discovery. And when you do connect with others, you do so from a place of strength and generosity, offering your company as a bonus to their life, not as a desperate requirement for your own survival. This is the foundation of a healthy, interdependent relationship, and it all begins with the courageous choice to occasionally be uncomfortable on your own terms. Anchor 13 calls us to a profound inner honesty, shifting our focus from the external theater of social perception to the private stage of our own character. This Stoic principle draws a clear line between your reputation, what others think of you, and your actual character, who you truly are when no one is watching. The philosopher Epictetus put it bluntly, asking, "What do you care what other people think about you? You're not going to be a better person in their eyes than you are in your own." In the high-stakes, image-obsessed world of modern attraction, this distinction is nothing short of revolutionary. It asks you to stop performing the role of an attractive person and to instead devote your energy to becoming a person of genuine substance and integrity, trusting that this inner quality will naturally express itself in a way that is far more magnetic than any performance could ever be. Think about the immense pressure to curate a perfect image online and in person. We carefully select photos that show us at our most adventurous and successful. We craft witty bios, and we often present a polished, highlight reel version of our lives. There's nothing inherently wrong with putting our best foot forward, but the Stoic warning emerges when this external presentation becomes disconnected from our internal reality. Are you posting about your hiking trip because you genuinely love nature and want to share the beauty? Or are you doing it because you believe it makes you look more attractive and interesting to potential partners? The first motive is an authentic expression of your character. The second is a performance for the sake of your reputation. The person who is focused on their character is concerned with actually being interesting, kind, and reliable. The person focused on their reputation is concerned only with appearing to be those things. This plays out powerfully in the small, private choices we make every day. Consider how you communicate with someone you're dating. A person fixated on reputation might send a thoughtful good morning text because they believe it's what a good partner should do, hoping to earn points and secure the other person's affection. Their action is transactional, aimed at controlling how they are perceived. In contrast, a person focused on character sends that same text purely from a place of genuine warmth and care, with no attached expectation of a specific response or reward. The action is identical, but the motivation is worlds apart. One is a strategy, the other is an expression of virtue. This inner orientation determines whether your actions in a relationship are a gift freely given or a form of emotional manipulation designed to manage your reputation as a nice or attentive person. This anchor provides incredible clarity when navigating the often murky waters of modern dating etiquette. For instance, you might be on a date with someone who holds a political view you strongly disagree with. The reputation-focused approach would be to nod along, to suppress your own opinion to avoid conflict and maintain the pleasant vibe, all in the hope of securing a second date. You are trading a piece of your integrity for the chance at further connection. The character-focused approach, however, requires courage. It means respectfully expressing your differing perspective, not to pick a fight, but to be honest about who you are and what you stand for. This might risk the immediate connection, but it ensures that any connection that continues is built on the solid ground of authenticity and mutual respect, not on a foundation of pretense. You are filtering for compatibility based on character, not just chemistry. The true test of this principle, of course, happens when absolutely no one is watching. How do you talk about the person you're dating when they're not around? Do you speak of them with respect and kindness to your friends, or do you indulge in gossip or subtle put-downs to make yourself look more desirable or less invested? A person of character maintains their integrity even in these private moments because their moral compass is internal. They are not good only when it might be seen and rewarded. They are good because that is their nature. This consistency creates a deep and unshakable self-trust. You know that you are the same person in public and in private, and this self-knowledge is a source of immense personal power. You are not constantly managing a gap between your internal reality and your external presentation, which is an exhausting and ultimately unsustainable way to live. Let's explore a scenario that highlights the long-term payoff of this focus. Imagine two people end a relationship. The person who was primarily focused on their reputation might be consumed with how the breakup makes them look. They might craft a careful narrative for their friends, paint their ex in a negative light to salvage their own image, or quickly jump into a new relationship to prove they are still desirable. Their healing process is externalized, dependent on how others perceive their post-breakup story. The person focused on their character, however, turns inward. They ask themselves the difficult character-defining questions. Did I act with integrity throughout this relationship? Where could I have been a better partner? Did I end things with honesty and kindness? Their healing process is about learning, growth, and taking ownership of their own actions, regardless of how the story is spun externally. This person emerges from the experience wiser and more self-aware, while the reputation-focused person often remains stuck in a cycle of image management, never truly confronting the lessons the relationship offered. Ultimately, prioritizing your character over your reputation cultivates a form of attractiveness that is both rare and irresistible. It's the attractiveness of authenticity. When you are no longer trying to manage what people think of you, you radiate a sense of ease and self-possession. People feel they are interacting with the real you, not a curated representative. This creates a space of psychological safety where others can also let their guard down and be real. A relationship built on this mutual authenticity is resilient because it isn't propped up by the fragile pillars of public opinion or social media approval. It is built on the bedrock of two people who know and respect each other's true characters. By committing to the hard, inner work of building a virtuous character, you stop chasing attraction and start embodying a quality that naturally draws the right kind of people toward you, those who are not fooled by performances, but who are magnetized by the quiet, steady power of genuine integrity. Anchor 14 offers a subtle yet powerful mental mechanism for navigating the vulnerability that comes with putting yourself out there, known as the reserve clause. This concept, deeply embedded in Stoic practice, involves adding a silent, internal qualifier to any of your intentions or actions. You commit to doing your very best, you throw your full effort into the endeavor, but you mentally reserve full and unconditional acceptance of whatever outcome may follow. In the context of attraction, this sounds like making a quiet promise to yourself. I will ask this person out, and I will do so with confidence and sincerity, but I reserve within myself the complete acceptance that they may say no. This single internal sentence acts as a psychological release valve, preventing your sense of self from becoming fused with the external result of your efforts. Think of it as the difference between a closed fist and an open hand. When you act without the reserve clause, you are essentially clutching the desired outcome in a tight fist. Your entire emotional state is contingent on prying that specific result from the hands of fate. If you succeed, you feel triumphant. If you fail, you feel crushed because you had no psychological buffer, no plan B for your heart. The reserve clause, however, is the practice of moving through the world with an open hand. You extend your effort, you offer your invitation, but your palm remains open. You are ready to receive a yes with grateful joy, but you are equally prepared for a no to land in your palm, to be observed, acknowledged, and then released without it defining you. The action itself, the courageous ask, remains entirely within your control and is a success in its own right, completely independent of the answer that comes back. This practice finds a beautiful parallel in the wisdom of the archer, a common Stoic metaphor. A skilled archer's job is to do everything within their power to hit the target. They must carefully select their arrow, check the wind, steady their breath, take precise aim, and release the string with a clean, fluid motion. Every one of these steps is within their control. What is not within their control is a sudden gust of wind that deflects the arrow, a moving target, or an unexpected obstacle in the arrow's path. The virtuous archer, therefore, defines success not by hitting the bullseye, but by having executed every step of the process with excellence. If they did that, they have succeeded, even if the arrow misses entirely. Your foray into dating is no different. Your target is a meaningful connection. Your aim is your sincere and respectful approach. The release is your clear communication of interest. The gust of wind is the other person's free will, their mood, their own complex history, all the unpredictable elements you cannot command. The reserve clause is your acceptance that you have done your part as the archer. You have released a well-aimed arrow, and you can be at peace with wherever it lands. Let's apply this to a very common moment of modern vulnerability, sending that first message to someone you're interested in on a dating app. Without the reserve clause, the entire experience is agony. You craft the message, you second-guess every word, you hover over the send button with a knot in your stomach. Once it's sent, your day becomes a roller coaster of checking your phone, your self-worth subtly shifting with every passing hour they don't reply. You have, in effect, handed them the remote control to your emotional state. Now, practice the same scenario with the reserve clause in place. Before you even start typing, you make that internal commitment. I am going to send a thoughtful, personalized message that reflects my genuine interest. I reserve full and complete acceptance that they may not reply, and that their reason for not replying has everything to do with their own world and nothing to do with my inherent worth. With that clause firmly in mind, you write and send the message. The action is now complete and successful. You have been courageous and intentional. You can then close the app and move on with your day, your inner peace intact, because you have already accepted the full spectrum of possible outcomes. Their reply becomes a bonus, not a verdict. This same mental framework is incredibly empowering when preparing for a difficult conversation within an existing relationship. Imagine you need to bring up a concern about the level of commitment or a behavior that's bothering you. The fear of the conversation often stems from the fear of the outcome, the fear that it might lead to an argument or even a breakup. The reserve clause allows you to approach this with courage and clarity. Your internal preparation sounds like this: I will have this conversation with honesty, kindness, and a clear expression of my feelings and needs. This is my part. I reserve full acceptance that the outcome may not be what I hope for. They may become defensive, they may be unable to meet my needs, or the relationship may end. By making peace with all potential outcomes in advance, you strip the conversation of its catastrophic power. You can speak your truth calmly and clearly, because you are not desperately trying to control the other person's reaction to ensure a specific result. You are simply fulfilling your duty to communicate with integrity, and you are prepared to accept the reality of the response, whatever it may be. Ultimately, the reserve clause is a master key to emotional freedom in your love life. It systematically decouples your actions from your attachments. You learn to take pride and find validation in the quality of your own efforts, in your courage, your honesty, your willingness to be vulnerable, rather than in the fickle and unpredictable responses of the external world. This doesn't make you cold or uninvested. On the contrary, it allows you to invest more fully because you are no longer investing with a desperate need for a return. You can be more playful, more present, and more authentically yourself in every interaction because the stakes have been internally lowered. Your self-worth is no longer on the table. It remains safely within you, anchored by the quiet, unshakable knowledge that you did your part well, and that you have the strength to accept with grace and resilience whatever life places in your open hand. Anchor 15 introduces a beautiful and expansive Stoic concept that can fundamentally reshape how we experience our relationships, known as sympatheia. This is the profound recognition that everything in the universe is woven together in a single, interconnected web. The Stoics saw the cosmos as a single, living, rational being, where every part influences every other part in an endless dance of cause and effect. A tree is connected to the sun, the soil, and the rain. A person's mood is connected to their sleep, their stress at work, a conversation they had with their mother, and the traffic on their commute. When we bring this panoramic perspective into the intimate space of a relationship, it becomes a powerful tool for dissolving the knee-jerk tendency to take our partner's behavior personally, replacing reactivity with a deep and understanding patience. Consider a common scenario. Your partner comes home from work, shoulders slumped, answers your cheerful, "How was your day?" with a grunt and retreats into silence. The immediate, untrained reaction is often to feel personally affronted. Your mind might leap to conclusions. What did I do? Are they angry with me? Don't they care about how their mood affects me? This interpretation centers you as the cause of their behavior, which inevitably leads to defensiveness, hurt feelings, or a retaliatory coldness. Sympatheia invites you to step back from that self-focused lens and see the larger picture. Their mood is not an isolated event directed at you. It is the current output of a vast and complex system. It is the product of a demanding boss, a missed deadline, a frustrating commute, or perhaps just a lack of quality sleep. They are not a monolith of grumpiness aiming itself at you. They are a point in a network being acted upon by countless invisible forces. This shift in perception is the essence of reducing personalization. When you stop interpreting your partner's actions as a deliberate commentary on your worth or your relationship, you disarm so much potential conflict. Their bad mood is no longer a personal attack. It is simply weather passing through the shared atmosphere of your home. You can learn to respond to this weather with the same practicality you would a sudden rain shower, not by getting angry at the sky, but by simply grabbing an umbrella. In this case, the umbrella might be giving them some space, offering a cup of tea without demanding conversation, or just allowing the feeling to be there without needing to fix it or make it about you. This doesn't mean you become a doormat for consistently poor behavior, but it does mean you stop escalating every minor, passing storm into a full-blown relationship crisis. The practice of sympatheia naturally cultivates a more compassionate and inquisitive stance. Instead of reacting with, "Why are you treating me this way?" you can learn to approach with, "It seems like you're carrying something heavy today. Would you like to talk about it, or would you prefer some quiet?" This question comes from a place of seeing your partner as a fellow human caught in the web of life, rather than as an opponent who is failing to make you happy. You become a teammate in navigating the complexities of existence, rather than an additional source of pressure or judgment. This creates a profound sense of psychological safety within the relationship. Your partner feels seen in their full humanity, with all their off days and external stresses, and knows they don't have to perform constant cheerfulness for your sake. This freedom to be authentically human, with all its messy fluctuations, is the bedrock of deep intimacy. We can find a powerful analogy for this in the natural world. Think of a lake. If you throw a stone into the water, the entire surface ripples. You wouldn't get angry at one particular ripple for moving toward you. You understand it's an inevitable consequence of the stone's impact. Your partner's mood is like those ripples. The stone might have been thrown miles away and hours ago, a critical email from a client, a worrying medical update for a family member. Their curt response to you is just a far-off ripple from that original impact. Sympatheia is the wisdom that allows you to look past the ripple hitting your shore and understand there was a stone cast elsewhere. Your role is not to fight the ripple, but to understand its origin. Applying this principle requires a conscious effort to widen your frame of reference. When you feel yourself getting prickly or defensive in response to your partner's tone or behavior, pause and actively call to mind the concept of the interconnected web. Mentally trace the possible threads. Did they have a big presentation today? Are they worried about money? Did they get into an argument with a friend? This isn't about making excuses for consistently hurtful behavior, but about granting the same grace you would want for yourself on a difficult day. It's recognizing that their actions are often less about you and more about everything else. This practice builds immense emotional resilience within the relationship because you are no longer allowing external, transient factors to constantly destabilize your shared bond. You learn to hold a steady, compassionate space for each other as you both navigate the inevitable storms and stresses of being human, understanding that you are not isolated islands, but deeply connected parts of a vast and interdependent whole. The next anchor in our Stoic toolkit is one of the most misunderstood, yet most liberating principles you can apply to your love life. This is anchor number 16, the cultivation of apatheia. Now, before you recoil at the word, thinking it sounds cold and unfeeling, It's crucial to clarify that Stoic apatheia is the polar opposite of the modern English word apathy. Apathy is a state of not caring, a lack of interest or emotion. Apatheia, in the Stoic sense, is something far more powerful and nuanced. It is a state of mind characterized by freedom from the unhealthy, overwhelming, and irrational passions, what the Greeks called the path, that so often hijack our reason and plunge us into emotional chaos. Imagine your mind as a clear, still pond. Apatheia is the state of that pond when it is undisturbed. You can still see the sky, the trees, and the world around you with perfect clarity. You can still feel the sun's warmth and the coolness of the water. This is the full range of healthy human emotion. Now, imagine a storm whipping across the pond's surface. The water becomes a churning, muddy turmoil. You can no longer see your reflection, and the beauty of the pond is lost beneath the raging waves. These storm waves are the path, the jealous rage that consumes you when you see your partner talking to someone else, the obsessive longing that makes you check your phone every 30 seconds for a text, the desperate neediness that compels you to abandon your own friends and interests to cling to your partner's side. Apatheia is not the absence of the pond, it is the absence of the storm. It is about experiencing the full depth of attraction, affection, and even love, without being controlled or enslaved by the chaotic and destructive emotions that so often masquerade as love itself. The crucial distinction lies in the difference between a healthy feeling and a destructive passion. Feeling a spark of attraction when you meet someone new is a natural human response. That feeling becomes a destructive passion when it morphs into an obsessive fantasy where you can think of nothing else, stalking their social media profiles for hours and constructing an entire future with them in your mind after a single conversation. Feeling a twinge of sadness or disappointment when a date doesn't lead to a second one is a normal, healthy emotion. That feeling becomes a destructive passion when it spirals into a week-long depression, a narrative of "I'll never be good enough," and a crushing blow to your entire sense of self-worth. Apatheia is not about eliminating the initial twinge of sadness. It is about preventing that twinge from exploding into a full-blown emotional wildfire. Let's explore a concrete scenario to see how this works in practice. You're in a relationship and your partner mentions they're going out for dinner with an old friend from college, a friend who happens to be very attractive and of the gender they typically date. A flicker of insecurity is a natural initial impression. The untrained mind lacking apatheia might seize upon that flicker and fan it into a roaring blaze of jealousy. Your heart starts racing, your mind fills with images of them laughing intimately. You feel a hot surge of suspicion and anger. This is the pathos of jealousy in full control. You might then act from this place, sending a passive-aggressive text, interrogating your partner when they get home, or withdrawing into a sulky silence. You are no longer acting from reason or from the virtue of trust. You are being acted upon by a storm of passion. Now, let's replay that scenario with the anchoring practice of apatheia. The same initial flicker of insecurity arises, but instead of being swept away by it, you recognize it for what it is, a fleeting impression, a piece of data, not a command. You create a small space between the feeling and your reaction. In that space, you engage your rational mind. You might remind yourself of your partner's proven character and their commitment to you. You might recall that trust is the foundation of your relationship and that acting on baseless jealousy would be an injustice to them and to yourself. You can acknowledge the feeling, "I feel a bit insecure about this," without letting it dictate your actions. You then choose to act with the virtue of trust and self-respect. You might simply say, "Hope you have a wonderful time at dinner," and then go about your own evening, focusing on your own hobbies or friends. The initial feeling may still be there, but it is a small ripple on your pond, not a tidal wave that has capsized your entire emotional boat. This practice is incredibly empowering because it shifts the locus of control firmly back to you. When you cultivate apatheia, you are no longer a puppet whose strings are pulled by every gust of attraction, every flicker of fear, or every surge of desire. You become the puppeteer. You can observe these powerful emotions, understand their source, and then decide whether to act on them or let them pass. This doesn't make you cold, it makes you incredibly stable and reliable. In a dating context, this is profoundly attractive. There is a magnetic quality to someone who is not easily thrown off balance, who doesn't spiral into neediness if a text isn't immediately returned, who can experience the intensity of new love without losing their own center. This emotional sovereignty signals that you are a whole person, capable of sharing your life without demanding that someone else become the sole source of your emotional regulation. Ultimately, the cultivation of apatheia is the practice of loving more freely and more wisely. It allows you to offer your affection as a gift, not as a desperate demand for reciprocation that chokes the life out of a connection. It enables you to appreciate your partner's qualities without becoming addicted to the dopamine hit of their validation. You learn to love the person without being enslaved by the passion. This creates relationships that are built on a foundation of mutual respect and chosen commitment, rather than on the fragile and volatile ground of emotional dependency. By freeing yourself from the tyranny of overwhelming passions, you don't love less, you learn to love better, with more clarity, more consistency, and a profound, unshakable peace that forms the bedrock of any truly lasting connection. Anchor number 17 invites us to master a skill that is simple in theory but deeply challenging in practice, yet its rewards are nothing short of liberating. This is the art of acquiescence. At its core, acquiescence is the graceful, uncomplaining acceptance of reality exactly as it presents itself, not as we fervently wish it were. In the context of attraction, this means looking directly at the facts of a situation, such as a person's clear lack of interest or the undeniable end of a relationship, and instead of fighting this reality with internal arguments, frantic what-ifs, or a torrent of emotional drama, you simply nod in acknowledgement. You accept the data. This isn't a state of passive defeat. It is an active, conscious choice to stop wrestling with a truth you cannot change, thereby conserving your most precious resource, your emotional and mental energy for the people and pursuits that truly merit it. So much of our suffering in dating arises from the exhausting gap between our expectations and the unyielding facts before us. We meet someone who seems perfect, and we build a detailed fantasy of a future together in our minds. When they don't call, or when they say they're not interested, we don't just experience the natural disappointment of a closed door. We often plunge into a secondary, self-created storm of resistance. We obsessively replay conversations, searching for a magical phrase we could have said differently. We concoct elaborate stories about why they really pulled away, stories that often revolve around our own perceived inadequacies. We might even try to bargain with reality, thinking, if I just give them more space, or if I just show up at that event they're going to, maybe they'll change their mind. This entire internal drama is a massive expenditure of energy that is being poured directly into a void. It is like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. No matter how much effort you exert, the bucket remains empty and you are left depleted. Acquiescence is the wisdom that allows you to see the hole stop pouring and walk calmly away with your bucket of energy still full. The power of this practice becomes clear when we contrast it with its opposite. Imagine two different people experiencing the same rejection. The first person, who has not learned the art of acquiescence, receives a "I'm not feeling a connection" text. They immediately fire back a string of questions. Why? What did I do wrong? Is there someone else? They then spend the next week dissecting the entire brief relationship with their friends, stalking the person's social media for clues, and feeling a lingering sense of bitterness and injustice. They are actively fighting the reality of the situation, and in doing so, they are allowing that one person's decision to colonize their mind and drain their vitality for days on end. Now observe the second person who practices Stoic acquiescence. They receive the exact same text. They feel the same initial sting of disappointment. This is a natural human reaction that Stoicism doesn't seek to erase. But then they engage their rational faculty. They acknowledge the fact this person has stated they do not wish to continue. This is the reality of the situation. They consciously choose not to argue with this fact, either externally with a pleading text or internally with a barrage of self-recrimination. They might take a deep breath and say to themselves, "Okay, this is the data, I accept it." They then feel the disappointment, but they do not amplify it into a days-long drama. Because they have acquiesced to reality so quickly, their emotional energy is preserved. That very evening, they might feel sad for an hour, but then they have the mental space to call a good friend, go to the gym, or immerse themselves in a work project. They have closed the ledger on that particular interaction efficiently, leaving their energy account largely intact for the next chapter of their life. This skill is deeply connected to the earlier anchor of the dichotomy of control. Acquiescence is the practical application of accepting the things we cannot change. We cannot control another person's feelings, their attraction, or their decisions. What we can control is our response to their decision. We can choose to fight it and deplete ourselves, or we can choose to accept it with grace and redirect our energy toward the vast areas of our life that remain within our power, our hobbies, our friendships, our health, and our own continuous growth. Acquiescence is the hinge that allows the door of the uncontrollable to swing shut, so you can turn and walk through the many doors that are still open to you. To make this tangible, consider the common experience of being ghosted. The lack of closure is a vacuum that our anxious minds are desperate to fill with stories. The art of acquiescence in this scenario involves consciously deciding to fill that vacuum with a simple, calm fact rather than a chaotic story. Instead of wondering, did I say something wrong? Are they hurt? Are they playing games? You actively impose a clear, albeit painful, reality. Their failure to communicate is, in itself, a powerful form of communication. It communicates a lack of interest or respect sufficient to warrant a direct conversation. I accept this as the current reality. By accepting this, you are not approving of the behavior. You are simply acknowledging its existence and its implied meaning. This acceptance allows you to stop checking your phone, to stop hoping, and to officially categorize that connection as closed. You reclaim your mental real estate from the ghost and reinvest it in your own living, breathing life. The art of acquiescence, therefore, is not about giving up. It's about growing up, embracing the maturity to look life squarely in the eye, accept what it offers without complaint, and wisely use your energy to build the future you desire, rather than wasting it on fighting a past you cannot alter. Anchor number 18 invites you to undertake one of the most empowering mental constructions of your life, the building of your inner citadel. This powerful Stoic metaphor, often attributed to the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, imagines your core self as a heavily fortified fortress. Its walls are not made of stone, but of your most deeply held values, your reasoned judgments, and your unshakable self-respect. The entire purpose of this citadel is to provide a sanctuary of peace and stability within you, a place that remains serene and untouchable no matter what storms of rejection, disappointment, or confusion rage in the external world of dating and relationships. If you have ever felt emotionally flattened by a ghosting or felt your self-worth crumble after a harsh breakup, it is a sign that your inner citadel was not yet fully built or well defended. Its walls were low, and the invaders of doubt, fear, and external validation were able to march right in and occupy your mind. So, what exactly are the building materials for this fortress? The foundation is your core values. These are the non-negotiable principles that guide your life, irrespective of who you are dating. Values like integrity, kindness, courage, honesty, and self-respect. The high, thick walls are constructed from your reasoned judgments, your ability, which we practiced in earlier anchors, to interpret events calmly and not be swept away by initial catastrophic impressions. The gate of this citadel is your self-respect, and it is guarded by the vigilant sentry of your rational mind. This gate determines what you allow to enter your inner space. You willingly let in constructive criticism, genuine affection, and shared joy, but you firmly bar the entry of disrespect, manipulation, and the toxic belief that your value is determined by someone else's interest in you. Let's make this practical. Imagine you have been seeing someone for a few weeks and you feel things are progressing well. Then suddenly they vanish. No replies to texts, their profile goes silent, you've been ghosted. For a person without a strong inner citadel, this event is a catastrophic invasion. The initial disappointment quickly escalates into a full-scale attack on their entire sense of self. The invader's thoughts like, "I'm unlovable," "I did something wrong," "I'm not attractive enough," storm the undefended gates and take over. They spend days or weeks feeling miserable, questioning everything about themselves, and giving this one person's immature behavior the power to define their reality. Now, let's witness the exact same scenario when you have been consciously building your inner fortress. The ghosting happens, the event is the same. You feel the initial sting of disappointment. This is a human reaction, and your citadel has room for healthy emotion. But then, the sentry of your rational mind stands firm at the gate. It assesses the situation. It acknowledges the fact. This person has chosen to disappear rather than communicate with honesty and respect. Then it consults the foundation of your core values. It asks, does this person's action align with my value of respectful communication? No. Does it align with my value of integrity? No. With this clarity, the sentry makes a decisive judgment. It declares, this behavior is a reflection of their character, not a measure of mine. My value of self-respect means I do not chase after those who disrespect me. The gate remains closed. The invaders of self-doubt clamor outside, but they cannot get in. You feel the disappointment, but it does not become a systemic collapse. You are safe inside your citadel, your self-worth intact, able to process the event without letting it define you. This inner fortress is your ultimate source of freedom in the dating world. When your sense of security is housed within these impregnable walls, you stop approaching potential partners from a place of desperate need. You are no longer looking for someone to build you a house of validation because you already live in a strong, well-appointed home within yourself. This changes your energy completely. You can be more playful, more authentically yourself, and more discerning because you are not terrified that a single no will leave you homeless. You can end relationships that are not serving you with far greater ease because you are not leaving the relationship emotionally destitute. You are simply closing the door on one external connection and returning to the solid comfort of your own inner home. The ongoing work, then, is one of daily maintenance and fortification. You build your citadel brick by brick through consistent practice. Every time you choose to walk away from a situation that disrespects your values, you add a foot to the height of your walls. Every time you pause before reacting to a provocative text and choose a reasoned response over a passionate one, you reinforce the gate. Every time you invest in your own hobbies, your friendships, and your personal growth, you are furnishing the interior of your citadel, making it a place you genuinely enjoy living in, with or without a partner. This is not an act of building walls to keep people out. It is an act of building a home for yourself so that when you do invite someone in, it is for companionship and shared joy, not because you need them for shelter. Your inner citadel ensures that you enter relationships as a whole, sovereign individual, offering partnership from a place of unshakable strength, not pleading for completion from a place of lack. Anchor 19 turns our attention to a practice that can fundamentally rewire your entire experience of seeking connection, and it's the simple, profound discipline of gratitude. While gratitude might sound like a soft or passive concept, in the Stoic framework it is an active and forceful act of mental reorientation. It is the deliberate choice to shift your focus from what is missing, the perfect partner, the reciprocated affection, the guaranteed future, to the genuine abundance that already exists in your present moment. This isn't about slapping a happy face on loneliness. It's about conducting a rigorous and honest audit of the real, tangible gifts in your life, which dramatically weakens the power of a scarcity mindset that so often poisons our approach to dating. A scarcity mindset in romance is that gnawing, anxious feeling that there are never enough good people out there, that time is running out, and that every missed connection is a catastrophic loss of one of the few precious opportunities you'll ever get. This mindset makes you desperate. It encourages you to cling to mediocre relationships out of fear there's nothing better. It makes you resentful of friends in happy partnerships, and it fills you with a sense of lack that you then project onto every new person you meet. Gratitude is the direct antidote to this. When you consciously and consistently catalog the good that is already yours, you prove to your own nervous system that you are not, in fact, living in an emotional desert. Your life is already rich with connection, meaning, and joy, and a romantic partner would be a wonderful addition to that existing abundance, not a rescue mission for a life of emptiness. Let's make this practice concrete. A powerful Stoic exercise is to begin or end each day by writing down 3 specific things for which you are genuinely grateful, and to deliberately include aspects of your social and emotional world. This goes far beyond being thankful for your health or your job. You train yourself to look for the micro moments of connection and support that are already present. Perhaps you are grateful for the friend who sent you a funny meme exactly when you needed a laugh. Maybe you feel deep appreciation for the colleague who listened patiently to you process a difficult decision. You might even feel gratitude for the simple, pleasant interaction you had with the barista who remembered your usual order. When you start actively looking for these threads of connection, you realize your life is already woven through with them. You are not an isolated island. You are a node in a network of care, however small those acts of care may seem. This realization fills your emotional tank, so you don't approach every date with the frantic energy of someone searching for their sole source of fuel. This practice also extends gracefully to your past relationships and attractions, no matter how they ended. It's easy to look back on a failed romance and label the entire experience a waste of time, a scar, or a mistake. But the Stoic practice of gratitude asks you to mine those experiences for their hidden value. What did that person teach you about your own boundaries? How did that heartbreak force you to develop a level of emotional resilience you didn't know you possessed? Even a brief, fleeting attraction can be a source of gratitude for the simple reminder that you are capable of feeling excitement and interest. By finding the lesson or the strength gained in every past connection, you reframe your entire history from a gallery of failures into a curriculum for your personal growth. You stop seeing ex-partners as adversaries and start seeing them as essential, if sometimes difficult, teachers who helped you become the wiser, more discerning person you are today. Consider the powerful shift this creates when you are actually out on a date. If you are carrying a scarcity mindset, your energy is heavy with need. You are subtly communicating, "Please like me because I need you to validate my existence." This is an immense pressure to put on another person, and it is often felt, even if not consciously recognized. Conversely, when you have cultivated a deep sense of gratitude for your existing life, your energy is one of generous offering. You walk into the room already full. You are thinking, "I have a wonderful, fulfilling life. I wonder if this person might be someone interesting to share a part of it with." This lack of desperation is incredibly magnetic. It allows you to be more present, more curious, and more authentic because you are not frantically trying to secure a specific outcome. The date becomes an exploration, not an audition. Imagine you've just come from a wonderful dinner with close friends where you felt truly seen, heard, and appreciated. You are filled with the warmth of those genuine connections. Now you go on a date later that same evening. That residual feeling of abundance changes everything. If the date goes well, it's a lovely bonus on an already great day. If the date fizzles, it doesn't crater your sense of self-worth, because your worth was already confirmed and celebrated hours earlier by people who truly know and love you. The date's outcome cannot take away the reality of that earlier connection. By regularly practicing gratitude for the people who are consistently in your corner, you build a bedrock of emotional security that makes you resilient to the inevitable rejections and disappointments of the dating world. Your sense of belonging is no longer contingent on the approval of a stranger. It is rooted in the proven, reliable relationships you nurture every single day. Anchor number 20 invites us to perform a simple but profound dissection of our own hearts, learning to differentiate between what we merely want and what we truly need. This is a cornerstone of Stoic practice, cutting through the noisy clutter of our desires to reveal the quiet, essential core of what constitutes a good life. We may want that specific person to text us back, to commit to us, to choose us above all others. We may want the validation of their affection, the security of their presence, the thrill of their reciprocated desire. These wants are powerful, visceral, and can feel all-consuming, but the Stoic asks a grounding, almost surgical question. Is this something I actually need in order to live a life of virtue, purpose, and contentment? The resounding, liberating answer from Stoicism is no. Your capacity for wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline, the ingredients of a virtuous life, is entirely independent of any one person's presence or approval. That person's affection is a preferred indifferent, a wonderful addition if it comes, but not a requirement for your fundamental wholeness and moral excellence. Making this distinction is like learning to separate the weather from the climate. Your wants are the daily weather, changeable, sometimes stormy, sometimes brilliantly sunny, and entirely dependent on transient external conditions. A match on an app is a sunny day, being ghosted is a sudden downpour. If you live by the weather, your emotional life will be a constant roller coaster of hope and despair. Your needs, in the Stoic sense, are the climate, the stable, internal conditions you cultivate for long-term growth. The climate is your character, your values, your ability to act with integrity regardless of whether it's raining or shining in your romantic life. By focusing on the climate, you stop being a slave to the daily forecast. You can want a sunny day while knowing you have everything you need to be happy and productive even in a torrential storm. This clarity transforms how you engage with potential partners. When you haven't made this distinction, every attraction carries a desperate, unspoken weight. You approach someone with a hidden, needy agenda. Please be the one to finally make me feel complete. Please assuage my loneliness. Please validate that I am worthy of love. This energy, however subtle, is perceptible. It can come across as clingy, intense, or insecure. It places an immense, unfair burden on the other person to be the architect of your happiness. But when you have firmly established that your needs for a virtuous character and a purposeful life are already being met by you, then your want for a partner shifts. It becomes a generous invitation, not a desperate plea. You are essentially saying, my life is already good and full. I am already living in accordance with my nature. You seem like a wonderful person, and I would be delighted to explore sharing that already complete life with you if our paths align. This is an energy of abundance, not lack, and it is infinitely more attractive and sustainable. Consider a practical scenario where this distinction becomes a lifeline. You've been dating someone for a few months and you feel yourself falling for them. The desire for their reciprocation becomes intense. Then they tell you they need to slow things down or that they aren't ready for the level of commitment you were hoping for. The untrained heart, which has conflated want with need, experiences this as an existential threat. It triggers a panic, a feeling of being fundamentally deprived of something essential. This often leads to pleading, negotiating, or compromising your own boundaries in a frantic attempt to secure the thing you believe you need. But if you have practiced this Stoic distinction, your reaction, while still disappointed, is completely different. You can look squarely at the situation and tell yourself, I deeply want a future with this person. That is a real and valid feeling. However, I do not need their specific commitment to remain a person of value, to live a good life, and to continue growing. My need for self-respect is non-negotiable. My need to live with integrity is paramount. This internal clarity gives you the strength to respond with grace. You can say, I understand and I respect your feelings. My desire for a committed partnership remains, so it seems our paths are diverging. I wish you the very best. You walk away with your dignity and your inner citadel intact because you protected what you truly need over what you simply wanted. This practice also serves as a brilliant filter for discerning the quality of your own desires. Sometimes the person we want is not good for us. We might be drawn to their charisma but overlook their inconsistency. We might crave their approval but ignore their disrespect. The want-need distinction acts as a check and balance. You can ask yourself, does wanting this person's affection support or undermine my core needs for peace, respect, and virtue? If pursuing them requires you to abandon your self-respect, to tolerate dishonesty, or to live in a constant state of anxiety, then that want is in direct conflict with your true needs. A Stoic chooses the need for inner peace over the tumultuous want for a toxic connection every single time. This isn't about depriving yourself. It's about prioritizing your long-term well-being over a short-term and ultimately destructive emotional fix. By regularly interrogating your wants against the bedrock of your Stoic needs, you gradually rewire your attractions, moving away from what is merely shiny and exciting and toward what is truly nourishing and aligned with the life you are purposefully building. And now we arrive at one of the most potent and advanced practices in the entire Stoic toolkit, an anchor that gives you absolute command over the very source of your emotional reactions. This is anchor number 21, the discipline of assent. At its heart, this is the practice of consciously pausing in the tiny, crucial space between an initial impression and your full-blown reaction to it. Every single day, our senses are bombarded with stimuli, and our minds instantly generate an interpretation, an impression of what it all means. Someone doesn't text you back, and the immediate impression is, they're ignoring me because they don't like me. You see your partner laughing with someone else, and the instant impression is, they're more interested in that person than they are in me. The discipline of assent is the powerful act of slamming on the mental brakes right there, in that fleeting moment, and refusing to automatically agree with or assent to that initial, often catastrophizing story. Think of your mind as a courtroom. An impression walks in like a dramatic witness and makes a bold, shocking claim. Your date is losing interest. In an untrained mind, the judge, your rational faculty, immediately bangs the gavel and declares, case closed, it's true, and you are then sentenced to a night of anxiety and overthinking. The discipline of assent teaches you to be a skeptical, thorough judge. When that witness makes their claim, you stop everything. You turn to the impression and you ask it the two most important questions you can possibly ask. Is this impression objectively true? And even if there's a grain of truth, is believing this thought helpful to me right now? This simple, deliberate interrogation creates a life-changing gap between the external event and your internal world, a gap where your freedom resides. Let's bring this to life with a scenario you've almost certainly experienced. You're in a new relationship and things have been going wonderfully. You send a good morning text as you often do, and hours pass with no reply. The initial impression arrives instantly, shouting its catastrophic narrative. They're pulling away, the excitement is fading, you've done something wrong. Without the discipline of assent, this impression becomes your reality. Your mood plummets, you check your phone obsessively, and you might even send a follow-up text laced with insecurity, which only makes the situation worse. You have assented to the impression without a trial, Now, let's replay that same morning with the discipline of assent actively engaged. The text isn't replied to. The same initial impression arises. They're losing interest, but instead of letting that thought take the wheel, you pause. You create that sacred space. You turn to the impression and you begin your cross-examination. First, you ask for evidence of its truth. Is it objectively 100% true that their lack of an immediate reply means they are losing interest? What other, more likely explanations exist? You then generate alternative, more rational narratives. They could be in back-to-back meetings. Their phone could have died. They might be dealing with a personal emergency. They could simply be busy and will reply when they have a quiet moment. By generating these alternatives, you immediately dismantle the absolute certainty of the initial impression. You realize it is not a fact, it is merely one possible interpretation among many, and arguably the least generous and most self-centered one. Then you move to the second, equally crucial question. Is believing this thought helpful? Even if there were a tiny chance the impression was true, what is the result of buying into it? Does it bring you peace? Does it make you a better, more attractive partner? No. It makes you anxious, insecure, and prone to acting in ways that could actually damage the connection. By recognizing that the thought is not helpful, you make a conscious choice to withdraw your assent. You decide, I will not grant this unhelpful, unverified story the power to ruin my day. You then consciously choose a different, more empowering thought to assent to instead, such as, I trust the connection we've built and I will focus on my own work until I hear from them. The external event is identical, the unreplied text, but your internal experience and your subsequent actions are now completely under your sovereign control. This discipline is particularly transformative when dealing with the intense surge of infatuation in the early stages of dating. You meet someone and feel a powerful, exhilarating click. The initial impression is a euphoric shout. This is the one, this is perfect. The undisciplined heart immediately assents, and you are swept away into a fantasy future, building an entire relationship in your mind after a single good date. This premature assent sets you up for immense pain if the other person doesn't feel the same intensity, and it prevents you from seeing the real person in front of you, flaws and all. The practiced Stoic, however, applies the discipline of assent even to positive impressions. When that wave of infatuation hits, they pause. They ask, is it true that this person is perfect for me after one evening? Is it helpful to build a future in my imagination with someone I barely know? The answers are a clear no, so they choose to assent only to a more measured, grounded thought. I had a wonderful time and I feel a strong attraction. I am curious to learn more about them over time. This allows you to enjoy the excitement without being enslaved by it, to keep your feet firmly on the ground while your heart feels the flutter. You protect yourself from the crash that follows a fantasy, and you give the real, unfolding connection the space it needs to reveal its true nature, whatever that may be. Anchor 22 invites a perspective shift so profound that it can fundamentally alter the emotional texture of every single interaction you have, turning the entire world of dating from a source of potential pain into a vibrant, ongoing classroom for your soul. This is the practice of seeing others, especially those who challenge or attract us, as our teachers. Every person who crosses your path, from the most enchanting connection to the most frustrating mismatch, arrives bearing a specific lesson tailored for your growth. The person who stands you up is not merely an inconvenience, they are a masterclass in patience and the art of letting go. The partner who listens with unwavering empathy is not just a source of comfort, they are a living demonstration of the virtue of generosity, showing you how it's done. When you adopt this lens, there are no truly failed interactions, only curriculum. A date that goes nowhere isn't a waste of an evening. It's a seminar that just concluded, and you are walking away with a priceless piece of data about your own needs, boundaries, or patterns. Consider the most common and painful teacher in the dating world, the the person who gives you mixed signals. One day they are warm and engaged, the next they are distant and aloof. The old, untrained response is to feel crazy, to obsess over their every word, to try and decode the mystery of their inconsistency. You are essentially fighting the lesson. You see the teacher as an adversary to be conquered or a puzzle to be solved. But when you shift to seeing them as your teacher, your entire orientation changes. You stop asking, "Why are they doing this to me?" and you start asking, "What is this situation here to teach me?" The lesson this teacher offers is often one of profound self-respect and emotional sovereignty. Their inconsistency is demonstrating the high cost of anchoring your peace to someone else's unpredictable behavior. The curriculum is forcing you to learn how to detach, to focus on your own inner stability, and to recognize that you deserve a consistency that this particular teacher is simply not equipped to provide. By accepting the lesson, you can learn it and move on, rather than staying stuck in a cycle of hope and disappointment, failing the same test over and over again. This philosophy finds a powerful echo in the life of Marcus Aurelius, who had to deal with some of the most difficult teachers imaginable: treacherous senators, rival generals, and even a plague that decimated his empire. In his meditations, he consistently reframed these challenges as opportunities to practice virtue. He saw annoying people as a chance to practice patience, betrayal as a lesson in forgiveness or justice, and immense pressure as a forge for his courage. He wrote to himself, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In your own life, the person who ghosts you is an impediment to your desire for connection. But they become the way to building the virtues of resilience and self-worth. The date who is rude or condescending is an impediment to a pleasant evening. But they become the way for you to practice the virtue of courage by calmly standing up for yourself, or the virtue of justice by recognizing that you do not have to tolerate disrespect. Every difficult person is a Marcus Aurelius-level teacher, offering you a custom-designed drill to strengthen a specific part of your character. Let's make this incredibly tangible. Imagine you go on a date with someone who spends the entire evening talking about themselves, never once asking you a meaningful question. The immediate reaction is to feel bored, invisible, and slightly resentful. You might label the date a dud and the person as self-absorbed, but through the lens of this anchor, you can conduct a quick post-date analysis. This person is your teacher. What is the lesson? One lesson is about the importance of reciprocal curiosity in a healthy connection. They have just given you a live demonstration of what its opposite looks and feels like, clarifying a key value for you. Another, more personal lesson might be about your own assertiveness. Did you find a way to gently steer the conversation, or did you passively endure it? This teacher has highlighted an area for your own growth, perhaps the need to practice speaking up and claiming space in a conversation. By extracting these lessons, the failed date becomes a rich source of actionable intelligence for your future. This mindset is also brilliantly applied to the people you are genuinely and happily attracted to. The partner who is effortlessly kind is teaching you, by example, how to soften your own edges. The one who is intellectually rigorous challenges you to sharpen your own thinking. The one who is playful and spontaneous might be offering a lesson in how to release your need for control and embrace more joy. When you see your partner as a teacher, it cultivates a deep and active appreciation for them. You are no longer just consuming their good qualities, you are consciously learning from them, which is one of the highest forms of respect. It turns the relationship into a mutual mentorship where you are both students and teachers for each other, constantly inspiring and elevating one another toward your best selves. Ultimately, this anchor transforms you from a passive recipient of romantic fortune into an active, inquisitive student of the human heart. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of other people's behavior and start seeing yourself as an eager learner in the grand university of life. A rejection is no longer a failure. It's a final exam in a particular course, and you have passed by learning the lesson and moving forward with grace. A heartbreak is a difficult but advanced seminar in emotional resilience and the nature of impermanence. When you walk into every interaction with the quiet question, "What can I learn here?" you disarm the power of disappointment and open yourself to a state of perpetual growth. The entire landscape of attraction ceases to be a risky gamble and becomes a guaranteed win. Because even in the most challenging encounters, you always walk away with the one thing no one can ever take from you: a deeper understanding of yourself and a stronger, more virtuous character. And that brings us to a principle that cuts through all the complexity and returns us to the one thing that is always, without exception, within our power. Anchor 23 reminds us that your primary duty, your fundamental responsibility in every single interaction, is to act rightly. This is the ultimate simplification of the dating experience. You are not responsible for making someone love you. You are not responsible for ensuring a connection blossoms or for healing someone else's emotional wounds. Your entire domain of control, and thus your entire arena of moral responsibility, is confined to your own thoughts, your own intentions, and your own actions. The only question you need to answer at the end of any encounter, from a first hello to a final goodbye, is this: did I act with kindness, with honesty, and with fairness toward this other human being? This focus on personal virtue, regardless of the outcome, is perhaps the most empowering reframe you can adopt. Think about the incredible mental energy we expend trying to manage other people's feelings. We fret over whether our text was funny enough to make them laugh, whether our date outfit was impressive enough to make them admire us, or whether our life story was compelling enough to make them stay. We are attempting to control a foreign country, the internal world of another person, with no map and no authority. It's a fool's errand that inevitably leads to exhaustion and frustration. The Stoic, however, is a master of their own small, sovereign nation. They are not looking across the border, trying to dictate the laws and customs of their neighbor. They are wholly focused on governing their own territory with justice and integrity. Your kindness is your law, your honesty is your currency, your fairness is your constitution. When you concentrate all your effort on perfecting the governance of your own inner state, you find a profound sense of peace because you are finally working on a project you can actually complete. Let's ground this in a scenario that often triggers a lack of integrity: the slow fade. You've been on a few dates with someone and you realize you're just not feeling a romantic connection. The easy, passive path is to simply become less available, to reply more slowly, to give vague answers, hoping they'll eventually get the hint and fade away themselves. This path is tempting because it feels like it avoids a difficult, awkward conversation. But from the perspective of your duty to act rightly, this passive approach is a failure of virtue. It lacks the courage to be direct, and it lacks the kindness of clear communication. Your duty is not to avoid discomfort. Your duty is to act with honesty and respect, even when it's hard. Acting rightly in this situation means mustering the courage to send a brief, kind, and unambiguous message. Something like, "I've really enjoyed getting to know you, but I don't feel a romantic connection moving forward. I wish you all the best." It's not easy to send, and it's not always easy to receive, but it is the right action. You have fulfilled your duty. You have been honest and treated them with the basic respect of a clear answer. What they feel about that message, whether they are sad, angry, or relieved, is their internal territory to manage, not yours. This principle is your ultimate shield against the pain of unrequited affection. When you love someone who does not love you back, the default story is one of tragic failure, but the Stoic story is completely different. It asks a single, clarifying question: did you love well? Did you express your affection with kindness and respect, without manipulation or expectation? If the answer is yes, then you have succeeded in your duty. You have performed the virtuous action of loving. The fact that the other person could not reciprocate is a piece of data about the external world, a fact that lies outside your control. It does not negate the beauty or the moral correctness of your own action. Your worth is not diminished by their inability to see it. Your worth is demonstrated by your capacity to offer love from a place of integrity without demanding a specific return on your emotional investment. You loved because it is a good and virtuous thing to do, not because you were guaranteed a particular result. This anchor also provides crucial guidance for how to behave within a relationship when conflict arises. Imagine your partner says something that hurts your feelings. The passionate, untrained reaction is often to retaliate, to say something equally or more hurtful to make them feel the pain you are feeling. This is an attempt to control their emotional state through punishment, but your duty is to act rightly, not to control. The virtuous path here involves 2 steps. First, you must act with the self-discipline to manage your own initial surge of anger, preventing it from dictating your words. Then, you must act with the courage and honesty to communicate your feelings clearly and fairly. When you said that, I felt hurt. This is an assertion of your own experience, not an attack on their character. You are controlling what is yours, your feelings and your communication, and presenting them with integrity. How they respond to that, whether with defensiveness, apology, or further unkindness, is, once again, their responsibility. You can only continue to govern your own nation well, responding to their actions with continued fairness and respect, or, if necessary, with the courage to leave a situation where your virtues are constantly being tested by their lack of them. Ultimately, understanding that your duty is only to act rightly liberates you from the exhausting burden of outcomes. You begin to see every romantic interaction as a series of moral choices, a continuous exam in your own character. A first date is not a test of your charm, but a test of your authenticity and your capacity for genuine curiosity. A breakup is not a test of your desirability, but a test of your grace and your commitment to ending things with honesty and kindness. When you make the shift from being outcome-focused to being virtue-focused, you walk through the world with a different kind of confidence. It's not the confidence of someone who knows they will be loved, but the confidence of someone who knows they will act lovingly. It's the quiet assurance that, no matter what happens, you will emerge from the experience with your integrity intact, having done your duty to the best of your ability. And in the end, that is the only reputation that truly matters, the one you build with yourself, in the silent court of your own conscience, where you alone are the judge of whether you acted rightly. This brings us to an anchor that serves as a powerful final call to action, a principle that synthesizes so much of what we've discussed into a single, urgent imperative. Anchor 24 asks us to return to the concept of memento mori, but this time with a razor-sharp focus on one of our most finite resources, our time. The Stoics weren't just reminding us of death to instill a general sense of urgency. They were providing the ultimate metric for measuring how we spend our days, our hours, and our emotional energy. When you truly internalize that your life is not just finite, but remarkably short in the grand scheme, it becomes intellectually and emotionally indefensible to squander your precious time on connections that are ambiguous, one-sided, or fundamentally disrespectful of your heart. Every minute you spend agonizing over a cryptic text from someone who is lukewarm about you is a minute stolen from your own life, a minute you could have spent deepening a friendship, learning a new skill, or simply enjoying your own company in peace. Think about the most common forms of time wasting in modern dating. It's the 3-week-long text conversation that never quite leads to a concrete plan. It's the 6-month situationship with someone who calls you their person in private but introduces you as a friend in public. It's the mental energy expended on decoding mixed signals, on waiting for the occasional breadcrumb of attention from someone who has made it clear through their actions that you are not a priority. We tolerate these time sinks because we are terrified of the finality of a clear no. we tell ourselves that ambiguity is better than closure because ambiguity allows us to keep our hope alive. But hope is not a strategy for a meaningful life. It is often a prison for the heart. The stark reminder of life's shortness forces a brutal but necessary audit. Is the faint, flickering hope of a maybe from this person worth the certain, tangible cost of the hours and days of your one and only life that you are pouring into this void? When framed that way, the answer becomes glaringly obvious. Let's make this concrete with a scenario that so many will recognize. You've been seeing someone for a couple of months. The time you spend together is wonderful, filled with laughter and a strong sense of connection. But in the spaces between your meetings, they are distant. They take days to reply to simple messages. They are vague about making future plans. You find yourself in a constant state of low-grade anxiety, your mood dictated by the rhythm of their communication. You tell yourself to be patient, that they're just busy, that they've been hurt before. You invest weeks, then months, in this state of suspended animation. Now hold that reality up against the light of memento mori. Is this how you want to spend one of your precious summers or autumns or years? Is this anxious waiting the story you want to tell about this chapter of your life? The Stoic realization is that the true loss is not the potential relationship that never materializes. The true, irrevocable loss is the time you surrendered while waiting for it to happen. That time is gone forever, and you can never get it back. This perspective instills a courageous kind of clarity that is far more valuable than any fleeting romance. When you feel the pull to invest in an ambiguous situation, you can ask yourself a simple, grounding question. If I knew I had 1 year left to live, would I spend this evening, this week, this month, in this same state of uncertain waiting? The answer will almost always be a resounding no. That no isn't born of despair, but of a profound love for your own life. It's the realization that your time is the currency of your existence, and you should spend it as wisely and intentionally as a wise investor spends their last dollar. This doesn't mean you become ruthless or impatient. It means you become fiercely protective of your inner peace. You start to see people who are clear, enthusiastic, and consistent not just as more attractive partners, but as people who respect your time. They understand its value because they understand the value of their own. Applying this anchor requires a shift from passive waiting to active curation of your own experience. Instead of leaving your calendar open for someone who might want to see you, you fill it with activities that bring you joy and growth. You stop waiting for a text and instead pick up the phone to call a friend who always makes you laugh. You stop ruminating on why they haven't replied and use that mental space to plan a weekend trip or finally start that creative project you've been putting off. Each of these actions is a declaration of sovereignty over your time. You are voting with your life for what truly matters. You are sending a powerful message to the universe and to yourself that your time is too valuable to be left on a shelf as a backup option for anyone. This proactive stance is incredibly magnetic. It communicates a wholeness and self-respect that is far more compelling than any amount of strategic patience or desperate waiting ever could be. You stop asking for someone to give you a reason to live and start presenting a life that is already so rich and engaging that the right person will be thrilled to be invited into it. And so we arrive at the final and ultimate anchor, the one that illuminates the purpose behind all the others. This is the Stoic concept of the summum bonum, the highest good. For the Stoics, this highest good, the ultimate aim of a human life, was not wealth, fame, pleasure, or even a successful relationship. It was virtue. Living a life of excellence in accordance with our rational nature, which for them meant the consistent practice of the four cardinal virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. Every single anchor we've explored, from the dichotomy of control to memento mori, is ultimately a practical tool designed to steer your ship toward this one fixed North Star. When you understand this, the entire landscape of attraction transforms from a quest to find the right person into a lifelong practice of becoming the right person, a person whose highest goal is their own moral and rational excellence. Think about what this means for the anxieties that so often plague our search for connection. We worry about being attractive enough, interesting enough, or successful enough to be chosen. We feel our value is contingent on another person's desire for us. The summum bonum shatters this entire paradigm. It asserts that your true worth, your highest attractiveness, has nothing to do with your dating profile, your conversational skills, or your relationship status. Your supreme value lies in your capacity for virtue. Are you cultivating the wisdom to see situations clearly without the fog of fantasy or fear? Are you exercising the courage to be vulnerable, to set boundaries, and to walk away from what is not aligned with your well-being? Are you acting with justice, treating every person you meet, regardless of their interest in you, with fundamental respect and fairness? Are you practicing temperance by managing your desires, moderating your impulses, and not allowing passion to overwhelm your reason? This is the work, this is the goal. A relationship from this vantage point becomes a wonderful byproduct, a fertile ground where you can practice and express these virtues even more fully, but it is never the source of them. This reframe is the ultimate liberation from neediness. When your primary objective is to live virtuously, you stop entering interactions with a hidden agenda of extraction. You are no longer thinking, what can I get from this person? How can I make them like me? Instead, your guiding question becomes, how can I express virtue in this moment? How can I be courageous here? How can I be just? Imagine going on a date with this as your sole focus. Your entire presence shifts. You are listening not to strategize your next witty remark, but to understand the human being in front of you, an act of wisdom and justice. You are speaking not to impress, but to express your authentic self, an act of courage. You are managing your expectations and desires, enjoying the moment without clinging to it, an act of temperance. You are, in essence, offering the very best of what it means to be human. And this quality of presence, this integrity of character, is the most powerful and enduring form of magnetism there is. Consider the long arc of a life lived with this anchor as its foundation. The pursuit of virtue is a lifelong journey, one that continues regardless of whether you are single, dating, or in a committed partnership. There is no point of arrival where you are done and can stop growing. This means your sense of purpose and fulfillment is never outsourced to another person. A breakup, while painful, is not the end of your story. It is simply a new chapter in your primary narrative of moral development. It offers fresh lessons in courage, resilience, and the wisdom of letting go. Being single is not a state of lack to be endured, but a valuable season for deepening your self-knowledge and strengthening your self-discipline. Every circumstance, every interaction becomes raw material for your central project, the refinement of your character. This is what it truly means to be grounded in the world of attraction. You are no longer a ship tossed on the turbulent seas of other people's opinions, fleeting chemistry, or the fear of being alone. You have become the lighthouse itself, firm, steadfast, and emanating a light that is not dependent on the weather. Your light is your virtue, and the beautiful, almost paradoxical truth is that this inner stability and purpose is what draws other healthy, whole people toward you. You stop attracting partners who are looking for someone to complete them, and you start attracting those who are looking for a fellow traveler on the path of a good life. They are not drawn to a performance or a polished facade. They are drawn to the solid, reliable, and good human being you are actively becoming. So as we bring our exploration of these 25 anchors to a close, the final invitation is this: make the pursuit of virtue your highest goal in matters of the heart. Let wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance be the standards by which you measure your success, not the number of matches, the intensity of a spark, or the security of a relationship status. When you do this, you will find that a profound sense of fulfillment becomes your constant companion. The chaos of attraction will settle into a meaningful journey of self-discovery. You will interact with others from a place of wholeness and generosity, and you will build connections that are not based on need but on a shared commitment to living well. The summum bonum is the master key that unlocks a love life not of desperation, but of profound and unshakable peace. And so we reach the culmination of our journey, a tour through 25 timeless Stoic anchors designed to hold you fast in the swirling, often chaotic seas of attraction and connection. We've moved from the foundational wisdom of focusing only on what you can control to the radical acceptance of loving your fate, and from the courageous practice of negative visualization to the liberating perspective of the view from above. We've explored how to turn every obstacle into our path, how to prioritize our character over our reputation, and how to build an inner citadel that remains unbreachable no matter what storms rage outside. Each of these principles is more than a clever idea. It is a practical tool, a mental discipline you can pick up and use today to begin reshaping your entire experience of love, dating, and relationships. The true power of these anchors isn't found in merely understanding them intellectually, but in the steady, cumulative effect of putting them into practice. When you consistently apply these principles, something profound begins to happen. The frantic need to control outcomes starts to loosen its grip. The sting of rejection loses its power to define you. The intoxicating rush of a new infatuation becomes something you can enjoy without being enslaved by it. You begin to cultivate a deep, unshakable inner stability that is not dependent on who texts you back, who swipes right, or who chooses to stay in your life. This stability is not a cold, emotionless state. It is a warm, resilient confidence that comes from knowing your worth is intrinsic, anchored in your own virtuous character, and entirely separate from the unpredictable actions of others. You stop seeking a relationship to complete you and start viewing it as a beautiful, shared expedition where two already whole people choose to navigate the adventure of life together. Now, the most important step is to move from learning to living. The sheer number of anchors might feel overwhelming, so I want to invite you into a simple, manageable practice. Don't try to master all 25 at once. This week, choose just one. Maybe it's the anchor that struck you most deeply, the one you found yourself thinking about long after you heard it. Perhaps it's the one that felt most challenging, the one that pricked at a vulnerability you know you need to fortify. Choose one single anchor to be your focus for the next 7 days. If you felt the anxiety of waiting for texts, make the dichotomy of control your practice. Before you send a message, consciously affirm, "My duty is to communicate with kindness and clarity." Their reply is their business. Then, put the phone down and walk away, directing your attention to something within your control. If you find yourself building castles in the sky after a single good date, choose the discipline of ascent. When that euphoric thought, "This is the one," arises, pause, cross-examine it, ask for its evidence, and choose to assent only to the more grounded thought. "I had a lovely time and I am curious to learn more." If you're recovering from a disappointment, let amor fati be your guide. Actively look for the hidden gift in the experience. Ask, "How is this preparing me? What strength is this inviting me to build?" By focusing on just one anchor, you give it space to sink from an abstract concept into a lived reality, rewiring your automatic responses one conscious choice at a time. I would love to hear which anchor has landed with you most powerfully. Down in the comments, tell me which of these 25 principles resonated most deeply. Was it the idea of building your inner citadel or the art of acquiescence? Did the practice of seeing others as your teachers change your perspective, or did the concept of the summum bonum give you a new North Star for your entire journey? Sharing your choice not only solidifies your own commitment, but also helps to create a community of practice right here. We can all learn from each other's insights, struggles, and triumphs as we each work to build a more grounded, resilient, and fulfilling love life. This journey doesn't end when this video does. The work of building an unshakable core is a lifelong practice, but it is the most rewarding work you will ever undertake. It is the work of becoming the calm in the storm, the steady captain of your own ship, and ultimately the architect of your own peace and happiness. By integrating these Stoic anchors into your daily life, you are not just learning to navigate attraction better, you are learning to live a better, wiser, and more virtuous life. And that is a reward that no fleeting romance can ever match or surpass.